everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. Today we're going to be looking at what's called the Gone Girl case. There was a documentary just came out on Netflix called American Nightmare, 3 parts, talks about this horrific case about a man and a woman who, well, I'll get into it, but they went through a horrific ordeal, and during the ordeal, they were not believed. Their stories were not believed as to what happened to them. And they were called the Gone Girl case by everybody in the media. And I'll get into all of that. But first, I want to welcome everybody who came back to the chat room because I just had some technical difficulties. Can you all see and hear me this time around? Oh, goody. Okay. Okay, I don't know what went wrong last time. Been one of those days where when you do a live show, things go wrong. But luckily, because I do my lives for patron only, at Patreon. These are people who are my patrons at Patreon. This is done not to the general public, but for people who support me on Patreon. And let me show you where that is. They come to the live shows prior to them going public. This is Patreon. And by $5 a month, you can come to eight shows. There's 4 hangouts and 4 live case shows a month. So there's 2 a week, and you could be in the chat room and participate in our community, and it's great fun. And then after the shows are done, after I make sure that YouTube doesn't have an issue with them, then I make them all public. So you don't have to join Patreon to see my shows, because I want everybody to be able to benefit from an educational channel on criminal profiling, crime scene analysis, and just understanding things. Just go and subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, and please do, if you have an interest in a particular case, go to the search engine at YouTube and put in Profiler Pat Brown and any case you're interested in, and it will pop up if I've done it. You can also check my playlist just to see all the cases I've done, and I've been here for almost 3 years now. It's a whole lot of cases on there. So anyway, if you want to support the channel in other ways, there's a little $sign, which is a super thanks. You can also buy books, whatever. So anyway, that's that. Let me get to this case. Ooh, and it is a doozy. And I'm going to talk about this case in a little bit of a different way than most everybody else is. It's such a bizarre case that, generally speaking, people tell the story of the case, and then they tell you how bad the police were, and that's it. that's the way it goes. But I'm interested in talking about how things actually work. And I'm not going to be as mean to the police as almost everybody else is. And I'm going to explain why this is, because I do understand how things work. And this was such a strange case, such an anomaly. There's reasons for the way things happened. But let me go back to what actually did happen. And I'm going to eventually give you a timeline of the Gone Girl. Was a movie that came out. Actually, Gillian Flynn, she wrote the book Gone Girl. She wrote that in 2012. And then the movie Gone Girl came out in 2014. And let me give you a quick idea of what the movie was about, because I think this plays into something in this case. Well, first of all, this whole case is about, well, people thought, the police thought, the media thought that this couple was lying, and they were doing a Gone Girl thing. Wait a minute, maybe I just better tell you the basic story, very basic story of what happened here, because otherwise I think that you may have no clue what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to give you the really, really simple story, okay? And then I'm going to go into it in more depth, because I want to explain how it actually, all the details of how it actually went down and why it's so interesting. All right, let me find a version that's simple. All right, how about this one? All right, so basically what happened was this. March 2015, actually, it was on March 23rd, 2015. And this was a year after the Gone Girl movie came out, which is why the Gone Girl thing got such play in the media. This is what happened. Denise Huskins, this is this woman here, was abducted by a home invader from an apartment in Vallejo, California. And her boyfriend, Aaron Quinn, was drugged with NyQuil at the same time, so he wasn't able to report her kidnapping right away. As shown in the docuseries, the Vallejo police first viewed Quinn as the prime suspect after hours of questioning and attempted to get him to confess. Confess to what? That he killed her. She was missing from the apartment. He claimed that some guy came in and tied them up and did all these really strange things, which I'll get into. And then he kidnapped Denise. And so the story was so bizarre, and I'll go into the story in a bit, that the police were like, yeah, I'm not buying this. And so they eventually said, hey, what'd you do to Denise? You know, what'd you do to the woman? And he did admit quite up front that he and Denise had some issues, that he had been trying to get back together with his ex-girlfriend, and she knew about it. So that night she came over and they were chatting about this kind of thing, and she goes missing. So motive is there, it seems. So the police said, yeah, you probably killed Denise, right? And then you hid her body someplace, and now you're telling us this crazy story. We're not buying it. All right. So they questioned him, tried to get him to confess. Well, then, even weirder yet, Huskins shows up at her father's house in Huntington Beach, hours south of Vallejo. It's like 6 hours south of Vallejo, really long way. Let me show you just a little. I have a map here because I thought, wow, that's a really long way. And this again is such a strange thing. Let me see if I find the right map. That's not the right map. Okay, this is where he lived. That's this location. It's in Vallejo on a place called Mare Island. Mare Island looks like that. So it's a small little spot across this little, whatever that is, waterway and Vallejo is the jurisdiction which they are in. So from there, way up north, she ends up down Huntington Beach, which is south of Los Angeles. Darn long way. So she shows up in Huntington Beach at her father's house, mind you. We're not showing, she didn't just was found on the side of the road someplace. She was found at her father's house, walking in to her father's house, looking pretty healthy. And she had been missing for 2 days, and now she's perfectly fine walking into daddy's house. So she was quickly labeled by the police and the media as the real life gone girl, and was accused of faking the entire ordeal and framing her boyfriend. So in the beginning, they said he did it. He killed her and was trying to fake that she had been kidnapped. When she shows up alive, they're like, all right, maybe she is framing her boyfriend. You know, the Gone Girl thing. Now, if you don't know what the Gone Girl movie is, let me take a little segue over there to Gone Girl movie. All right. So the Gone Girl movie had happened a year prior. All right. Now, the book came out in 2012. 2 years later, the movie came out. You can see the movie. I paid for it on Prime Amazon. This is on Netflix. So you can see that if you have Netflix. There's a bunch of other stuff. You can go on YouTube and get some pretty good. I think I'll try to link one below, just a good rendition on, I think it was 48 hours or something. I'll link that below. But if you have Netflix, go watch it. It's really a great documentary. Very interesting. Gone Girl, I think I did read the book and hated it. And then I went to the movie. And I remember being at the movie theater and I was stuck. I was like in a really long row next to a wall. And I couldn't get out because I wanted to leave because I hated the movie. But I did rewatch it to do this show. See what I do for you guys? I mean, what I suffer through. I paid money over at Prime Video, and I watched it all the way through because I wanted to know exactly what happened in that movie so I could understand why they were claiming this was a Gone Girl crime. So let me tell you what happened in the movie. All right? Okay. Gone Girl is a 2014 American psychological thriller film directed by David Fincher and written by Gillian Flynn, based on her 2012 novel. All right. Now, what basically happens is this is the plot. which is, it starts out okay, but then turns into total ludicrousness. But it may have some impact on this whole crime. So on their fifth wedding anniversary, writing teacher Nick Dunn returns home to find his wife Amy missing. Oh, let me show you. Let me show you the characters in the film so you can follow this. Up on the top row, these are the actors and actresses in Gone Girl, the film. Over here we have Rosalind Pike, and she is playing Amy, the wife, the one who fakes everything. And then in the middle here, we have Ben Affleck, who is playing her husband. His name is Nicholas Dunn. And over here, we have Neil Patrick Harris, and he's the kind of strange guy in this film. I'll get to the story later, but he essentially was her stalker, but when she needed somebody to use, she kind of stalked and found him, and that's all in the Gone Girl film. Now, if you look at the bottom row here, you'll notice that, oh, look, they kind of look similar. And this is what the media like grabbed onto, right? So down here we have Denise Huskins, and the media is like, oh, she kind of looks like that Amy girl, in the film. And over here we have Aaron Quinn, and he's kind of like the husband. And then over here we have Matthew Muller, who doesn't look so much the same here, but let's face it, you got 3 players here, and you've had 3 players here in the film, and this is what the media just went berserko on, right? So now, let's go to the story in the film. On their 5th anniversary, writing teacher Nick Dunn, all right, who was played by Ben Affleck, returns home to find his wife Amy missing, who is played by Rosalind Pike. All right. Amy's fame as an inspiration for her parents' successful Amazing Amy children's books ensures widespread press coverage. The media finds Nick's apathy toward the disappearance of his wife suspicious. Okay, so essentially in Gone Girl, when his wife goes missing and he calls the police, he has a very dead, apathetic voice. All right? And this is not dissimilar to how this poor man sounded when he talked about his missing girlfriend. When he called 911, and I wanted to play the 911 tape, but I couldn't find it without it coming from the documentary, which had the music behind it, and I knew I would get nailed with copyright infringement. I was trying to find just a plain version of his 911 call. What he said in the 911 call was not suspicious to me, in the sense that he just told the facts as they were. My girlfriend has been kidnapped, and so on. He answered the questions. But they said, well, why didn't you call? Kidnapped how long ago? And it was like, hours ago. And they're like, why didn't you call? And he said, because I was drugged. I was tied up. I was drugged. And so the story already sounded suspicious. But he was actually telling simple facts. But the other problem was he had a very flat affect. It was almost monotone in the statements he made on 911. And that did set up a red flag for me. I'm like, if I heard that, I'm like, what you're saying is weird, but you're not doing it in the wrong order. You seem to be saying things properly, but your voice is so flat that it's like you don't have a lot of emotion toward the fact that your girlfriend's been kidnapped. But in reality, the problem was he was drugged. And so his voice was rather flat. But if you go back to the movie, the problem is when Ben Affleck in his role as Nick Dunn, when he calls the police, he also has a very flat affect. And that's not so much because he was drugged. It's just because I don't think he liked his wife, which was a problem. And then what happens, the one other reason that in Gone Girl, people turned against him was because they found out he was having an affair this whole time with a student, mind you, and one of his students. And so he had a motive, like he had the younger woman that he was cheating with, and he didn't seem to have a lot of love for his wife. And his story about how it happened seemed a bit off. And he came home and he just went out. And when he came home, a table was smashed and they found blood that had been on the floor, but had been cleaned up. So, they're like, you killed her and got rid of her. Well, very similarly, he also had the story that he's having problems with their relationship, and he's thinking about going back to the other one. She found out, so you almost have a redo of Gone Girl, and you have a story he's telling which doesn't seem right. So far things are sort of similar to Gone Girl. Now, what happens in Gone Girl? So it turns out, so she in Gone Girl, wife is missing for a long time. And then she reappears. And supposedly what happened was she says she was kidnapped by, now we've got Neil Patrick Harris playing the part of this weirdo who used to stalk her, who's very wealthy. And she actually goes to him and says, I want to stay with you. But he is kind of crazy. So she's staying with him in a fancy house. And he's got cameras everywhere, so she can't leave, but he says it's for her protection, and he wants to have sex with her, of course, and he makes her fancy food and all this stuff. She gets everything she wants, brings her pretty close, but then she kills him. Okay, and she encourages him to have sex with her, and because she wants the DNA from him to prove she's been raped, and she also shoves a bottle up herself so she can, she wants to show that she has damage to her, and then she cuts his throat. And it's, and she plays these clever games where she pretends she's like lying on the ground in front of one of the cameras. So she's trying to prove that she was kidnapped and raped, and that's why she killed him. And then she returns home. She reappears. And in the story, of course, now the husband is cleared from being the guy who did anything to his wife, but her claim is that she was kidnapped, and now she has escaped, essentially. And the kidnapper's dead. Well, the end of the movie, you can go check that out. It's stupid. The rest of it is stupid. The whole premise of how she got away with this without any question about the actual murder of the guy that she suckered into, having her at his place, it's all ludicrous. But the concept was that the wife staged this kidnapping, and she disappeared. The husband became the suspect for a long time until she reappeared. So that's the Gone Girl thing. What we will see is also Sherri Papini in 2016. That was after this case, but Sherri Papini disappears, and then the husband. Some people wondered if the husband did something to her, but mostly people thought she had been kidnapped. I did not. I'll link my Sherri Papini video below. I never thought she had been kidnapped, and I did call her the Gone Girl one, I think. And she reappeared. I've been kidnapped, and I didn't buy it. And of course, she has been convicted of, and now she's free, of staging this whole thing. So Sherri Papini was the real Gone Girl, although her husband didn't suffer too much criticism for killing her. Everybody did think she was kidnapped. She just wasn't. So in this case, the police believed that he did kill her until she reappeared. Then they began to think she was playing the Gone Girl thing, just like the movie, which had been out just a year prior, that she wanted attention, massive attention. And she did get it, not in a good way for her, because actually it wasn't true that she was a Gone Girl. But she ended up, the police did not believe her when she reappeared. And so they believed she was either totally by herself and framed him, or maybe even they were both in on it together. But they went crazy in the media, and they did all this Gone Girl stuff. Now, funny thing about it is that after Gone Girl came out, one of the things they had done in Gone Girl was they had in the media in the Gone Girl movie, somebody pretending to be Nancy Grace, saying things like, hashtag fake, hashtag hoax, hashtag kidnapping hoax, and mocking the husband. This is when supposedly that they thought he had killed his wife, mocking the husband, saying we know he's a liar, we know he killed her, we absolutely know that. And so she was playing Nancy Grace. And in real life, after the Huskins case, Nancy Grace did come out and think that that it was all a hoax, and she did have hashtag kidnapping hoax. So it's kind of funny that it's like real life after fake life. And Nancy actually thought that was pretty funny that she was being represented in the movie as being wrong. But then she turns out a year later to be wrong because she thinks that Denise Huskins definitely was a Gone Girl hoax. So we have real life mirroring film and books. It's kind of fascinating. Real life versus fiction. So we had this Gone Girl thing had this whole thread through this. So essentially, let's go back to this couple. All right, so she reappears. Nobody believes that she was actually kidnapped because she just reappears 6 hours south at her father's house. And she's not terribly damaged. The police do ask her in the beginning, was she raped? She said no. And it wasn't, she said later on she had been raped, but she didn't want to say that right up front. And that did not help out things. So now she gives a story about how she was kidnapped, and it doesn't, again, it sounds as absolutely strange as what he said. So the police do not believe them. And then the media runs amok saying that they're both liars. She's definitely a liar. She's Gone Girl, until they find out that it's not true. Okay. That they find out that these two actually were told the truth. So, and they found the guy that actually committed the crime, Matthew Muller. And so I will get into that. They did find out who did it. And he's in prison for 40 years right now. So now that's the basics. I know that's a little bit confusing, but as basic as I can get here. Okay. The cops were awful sorry, Pat. Disagree. They didn't do due diligence. Okay, I'm going to get into that. So this is what I want to explain. Now, I'm not trying to let all the cops off the hook, okay? Don't misunderstand me. See, things are always more complicated than we tend to believe because we are not there and we already know the end result. This is one of the problems that we often have, that once everything is clear, then we look at things through that lens. We don't look at things through the original lens. And I want to go back to the original lens just to show you how things went down and why. I mean, there are certain things I think needed to be done better, and there's always that. I'm going to link below. Let me pull up my the other show I did, which people really went down, really hated the police on. That would be where'd it go? Which one was it? This one, the Ryan Waller case. I will link that below because Ryan Waller was a young man who the police, when they went to do a well check for his family, found Ryan Waller wandering around his house with a dead girl on his sofa. His girlfriend had been shot and was laying dead on the sofa. And he'd been wandering around for like a day and a half, never called 911, never called the police. And he's wandering around and he's like, yeah, she's sleeping. And they bring him into the police station, and they should have checked. He did have a shiner of an eye, and they thought she punched him, and he did say she punched him. So they should have taken him to the hospital, done some check on his health. That is true. That was the one big mistake they made. But once he got into the police station, he's sitting in the chair, and the detective rolls in, starts questioning him, and people go, "Oh my God, look at him! He's questioning this poor guy who's got bullets in his head because the guy had actually been shot twice in the head." So people are like, how could the detective do this? But I explained in that video, the detective had no clue. And under most circumstances, when you find a guy with a dead girlfriend on the sofa, and he's not saying anybody else did it, and he didn't call the police or 911, you think he's the guy that killed her. About 20 minutes into the interview, he's like, this guy's he's answering a lot of the questions correctly, but he's also saying strange things. And then he finally he goes and looks really close at the guy, and he's like, okay, I'm getting the paramedic people in here. And they did, and then they took him to the hospital. And people wanted that detective to lose his job, to be fired, to be put in prison. And he really didn't do anything that badly. Was there a point where maybe they should have early on when they come to the house and put Ryan in the police car, somebody should have checked him out, maybe gone to the hospital? Yes, I don't know what went wrong in that point, but people went nuts because, he's interviewing a guy with a bullet in his head. Well, yeah, but nobody knew that. Only you knew that because you're watching things after the fact. Same thing is true here. Let me tell you the story now of what he said. Now, and so I want to go back to what the police experienced when he started talking, because, and I'm going to get back to the Gone Girl thing. I think Gone Girl thing has a big part of this. Okay. So, all right, let me go to, there's a really great article. And I'm going to link it because I think it was the best article I've ever seen done on this case. And it's incredible. And I want to give credit to them. It's a magazine called Atavist. I will link it below. But here's the point where he comes into the picture. The police he's called 911. He's talking in this flat voice. Okay. It's very flat voice. And it's a strange story, even on the 911 call, that his girlfriend has been kidnapped, but he didn't call for many hours because he had to get untied and he'd been drugged. And he starts saying these weird things, and they're like, okay. So anyway, he goes to the police station. But here is what he tells them. Now you got to now look at it from the point of view of the police station, and the guy's name is Mustard. I think it's Matthew Mustard. I always think of every time I think of the game Clue, it's like Colonel Mustard is in the library with a rope. You know, the name just makes me laugh. But anyway, so there's this guy. Let me show you our. Here we have Ryan now. He's in the room. He's getting. The guy on the left is the guy who's interviewing / interrogating him, and he's sitting in this room getting interrogated by this guy on the left, and in the beginning, the detective is quite nice to him, quite nice. He's just chatting with him, saying what happened, and this is have to understand how detectives work. Detectives always start by being nice because what they're trying to do is draw that person out. At this point, he's thinking, this guy calls up and says his girlfriend's been kidnapped and his story is a little off. So I'm just going to talk to him nicely and see what his story really is. Now listen to this story. Now put yourself, again, take your emotions away. Take it just you want to blame somebody. Go back. Here's a guy who's done a lot of detective work. And I'm not saying he did everything perfectly. I'm not saying the police department did. I'm going to get into some of the issues I think could have been done better. But take yourself back without the emotions and without the knowledge that this poor guy is actually telling the truth, okay? Aaron Quinn is actually telling the truth, but it's a story which this guy is going, what the? Okay, so this is the best rendition of the story I've heard. So what he says, so what happens is on 2 p.m., March 23rd, 2015, Vallejo police get a call from a 30-year-old man named Aaron Quinn, who lived on Kirkland Avenue, and he recounted a strange story. So when he's in police custody, now this is what Quinn says. He'd spent the previous evening with 29-year-old Denise Huskins, whom he'd been dating for around 8 months. The pair had met at a hospital in Vallejo where they both worked as physical therapists. They looked like an all-American couple. He was a former high school quarterback. She had blue eyes and long blonde hair. Around midnight, Quinn checked that all the windows and doors were locked, and they went upstairs to bed. Now, right away, he's starting to say that he made sure the place was locked up, which is, you'd think, why would there be a home invasion if everything's so well locked up, right? So this is like already is a little red flag going on here. 3 hours later, Quinn started awake. A blinding light pulsed from the corner of the room and red dots twitched across the walls. They looked like laser gun sights. Okay, right away. Again, let's look at this. Somebody has woken up in the night and somebody's got laser stuff going around the room. When was the last time you heard of a home invasion involving laser lights? Probably never. Probably never. And the person said, this is Quinn's version of it. This is a robbery. We are not here to hurt you. A man said in a businesslike tone. He told the couple, says Quinn, to lie face down, but Quinn was too shocked to move. Then the guy says, according to Aaron Quinn, Aaron, you're not turning over. The intruder knew his name. All right, let's stop again. First of all, this is a robbery. We are not here to hurt you. Who says that? What kind of robber ever says that? That's okay. Weird stuff number 2. Then Aaron says that the guy knew his name. Aaron, you're not turning over. How many home invasion people know the name of the people they're home invading? Usually they just find a place that looks like a place to break into. They break in, they pull out guns. They don't know who the hell those people are. Maybe the last name was on the mailbox, but they don't know the first name of the people. Number 3, red flag. So this guy's going, you wake up to laser lights. A guy saying, this is a robbery, we're not here to hurt you. Oh, by the way, Aaron, 3 red flags right there. The man placed plastic zip ties on the bed and told Huskins, the girlfriend, to bind Quinn's wrists and ankles. As she complied, her hands were shaking. The man reassured her, you're doing a good job. Again, odd tone for a home invasion. Then Aaron says he had Huskins walk to the large closet across the room, then help Quinn him off the bed so he could hop over to join her. Aaron Quinn said he kept his head down as instructed, and behind him he heard the crackle of a stun gun. He lay down on the carpet beside Huskins, shivering in his underwear. All right, that could have happened. Through the closet floor, Quinn heard someone downstairs rifling through the kitchen cabinets and running a drill. How many people use a drill in a home invasion unless they're drilling a safe open, which this guy is not? He hoped this was just a twisted robbery. He felt the man put swim goggles with blacked out lenses over his eyes. How many home invasion people put goggles over your eyes that are blacked out? Usually the home invasion people usually wear masks so that you can't identify them. They do things in the dark. They're wearing a mask. They don't pay any they don't worry about you seeing them because they're covered up. Maybe you just don't lay down, look away from us, don't look at us type of thing. I've never heard of home invasion people putting on swim goggles. 4 red flags. And over his eyes and headphones over his ears. 5th red flag. What the hey? The guy's putting like music. What? He's putting headphones on? And then Aaron says he heard melodic wind chimes. Then a robotic voice. Stay calm, it said. Our motivation is purely financial. Again, what the heck? That's the most ridiculous thing ever. So we got 5. The recording, which at one point addressed Quinn by name. So this would be so pre-planned that the home invasion guy would know Aaron Quinn's name to that extent and put it on a tape. That's 6. Okay. The recording, which at one point, addressed Quinn by name, said he would give a mix of NyQuil and diazepam, a sedative. Again, how I've never heard of that being used in a home invasion. Very weird. So that's 7 red flags. Then the man took the couple's blood pressure and asked if either of them had allergies or were on medications that were contraindicated for the drinks they were going to take. How kind of him. That's the 8th red flag. This guy's going, at this point, this guy is going, what in the heck? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So we're up to 8 red flags. When they said no, he poured the liquid down their throats. Soon after, Aaron Quinn said he heard the man move Huskins to another room. A new recording played in his ears. You will be asked a series of questions. If we believe you're not telling the truth, your partner will be punished by electric shock, then cuts to the face. The intruder removed the headphones from Aaron Quinn's ears and recited the address of Quinn's childhood home. The man also knew where Quinn banked and asked for his passwords to his financial and email accounts, his phone and laptop, and his Wi-Fi network. My gosh, this is a whole lot of crazy stuff. 9 red flags. After leaving briefly to speak with Huskins, supposedly, the man asked Quinn if she looked like a woman named Andrea Roberts. Andrea Roberts is this woman, which was his ex-girlfriend. And the one he was trying to get to act together with, I think he's with the right woman now, by the way. I don't like Andrea so much. She was kind of snarly in her interview. I was like, you moved on to a better girl. Anyway, he says, supposedly, this was intended for Andrea. We got the wrong intel. Again, come on now. He knows the guy's ex-girlfriend used to live there with him and just got the wrong intel. Am I up to 9 or 10? I'm going to say 10 just because I've lost count now. So this guy's like got 10 red flags. Things are just so bizarre. You can't believe it. Then Aaron Quinn says the man left the room again for what he thought was about half an hour. When he came back, he told Quinn that Huskins was being taken and that Quinn would need to pay a ransom of several $1,000s. It turned out to be supposedly $15,000. Red flag 11. Nobody steals anybody for a crappy $15,000. They want $100,000. At least something. $15,000 is hard. You can't even buy a car with that. So he's like, that's not the kind of ransom anybody asked for. It's like, that's what sounds like somebody who doesn't know how to put together a crime scene would come up with. And he said if he complied, Huskins would be returned within 48 hours. The man replaced Quinn's headphones. A recording explained that the people committing the crime were a black market group who collected personal and financial debts. Quinn was to stay in the house in a marked off area and wait instructions. If he failed to follow orders or called the police, his partner or family would be hurt. Waiting will be the hardest part, the recording said. You should entertain yourself by reading. Again, this is not normal. Well, I think we're up to 11. All right. The man cut the zip ties off of Quinn's feet and guided him downstairs, where he again bound his ankles with duct tape and then laid him across the living room couch. Well, duct tape is easier to get off. So 12. Why would the guy do that? Well, okay. Now he tells Quinn to stay put until sunrise, then call in sick for work and text Huskins' boss that she was dealing with a family emergency. The man said that he would be taking Quinn's car. He would let him know where it was in the morning so he could drive to the bank. Well, that's very kind of him. And he did. The car was left locally. Are you comfortable? The man asked. Again, okay, there we go. What are we on? 12? I don't know. 12 red flags. Again, what home invasion person cares if you're comfortable? Quinn asked for a blanket. Oh, yes, the man said. I forgot how cold it is because we're wearing wetsuits. Okay, that's 13 red flags. This guy's going, wait, you got guys in wetsuits doing this? Come on now. This is getting stupider by the minute. Quinn supposedly hears the trunk of his car shut, the engine start, and the garage door open. Using an armrest, he nudges off the goggles. The clock read 5 a.m. Groggy from sedatives, he felt his eyes grow heavy. For the next 6.5 hours, he drifted in and out of sleep. Eventually, he wriggled his wrists out of the zip ties and hopped to the kitchen where scissors had been left for him to cut his ankles free. Red flag 13. Oh, isn't that convenient? But okay, it's because he needs to be free to go to his car, to go to the bank, to get this very crappy teeny ransom. A device that looked like a security camera with a motion sensor beeped across the room. Now there's a camera up there. Strips of red tape on the floor marked the perimeter Quinn wasn't supposed to cross, which I don't understand because I didn't have to hop to the kitchen to get the scissors. But anyway, his car, $200 in cash, and his Asus laptop were missing. Now, I would take your Asus laptop for no reason because I hate that. I bought one of those and they sucked. But anyway, the laptop was missing, $200 in cash was missing, his girlfriend was missing, and his car was missing. So he claims. Soon after, Quinn received an email, which actually came from his own email. So what are we on? 14. It's like, so the guy didn't send it from a different email, sent it from your own email. But I guess he had the laptop, right? Instructing him to take out $8,500 in cash from 2 different accounts. We do not wish to trigger the $10,000 reporting limit, it said. If the bank asked why he needed the money, a second email instructed him he should reply he wanted to pay for a ski boat. Quinn told police that he agonized over whether to contact them at all because of the kidnapper's threats. Eventually spoke with his brother, an FBI agent, who advised him to call 911. That was his basic story. And I'm going to say, if I couldn't even count right, maybe 15 red flags. So when he's interviewing Aaron, the story is so ridiculous, so stupid. And he says, at first he was nice, but then he's made it clear he didn't believe Quinn's story. And he said these words, "There ain't no frogman coming into your house," Mustard said. "Nobody dressed in wetsuits. It didn't happen." Mustard later stated that he thought many details in Quinn's account sounded fantastical, and they did. Swim goggles, relaxing music, pre-recorded messages, a perpetrator who supplied his victim with a blanket and reading material. The detective probed Quinn for information about his personal life. Quinn said that he and Huskins had recently hit a rough patch. She found texts he sent to Roberts, his former fiancée, that's Andrea, asking her to rekindle their relationship. The night of the bizarre events, Quinn described, Huskins had come over to talk through everything, and the couple had been drinking. As far as Mustard knew, officers saw no sign of forced entry at the house. 16 red flag. Upstairs, they smelled a strong scented odor and noted that the carpets looked freshly vacuumed. Quinn's comforter was gone from his bed, and the sheet had a small blood stain. So they might have thought that he killed her in that bed, put her in a comforter, and took her away someplace. Police found Quinn's car in a parking lot just 3 minutes from his house. Now, let me tell you something. When people are, after they dump a body, what they don't want to do is have to walk a long way home. So what you do is you dump the body someplace with a car, then you drive sort of close to your house if you're trying to play this whole game, and then you walk back from there. The emails Quinn claimed were from the kidnappers had been sent from his own account, and he was in possession of Huskins' phone. After his girlfriend disappeared, Quinn didn't act as Mustard expected a crime victim would. He took a nap, called in sick to work, texted Huskins' boss, ultimately waiting more than 8 hours to call 911. Every one of these things that he saw Aaron Quinn do and say were suspicious. Absolutely 100% suspicious. If I had been sitting in his place, I would have thought the same thing. And so I would have been a shitty profiler, I guess, because everybody's saying he's a shitty detective. But this is an anomaly. This is why I want people to understand. Take your emotions out. Take away the fact that you already know the ending of the story. This is such an anomaly, so incredibly rare, that there's no way even a trained detective or a trained profiler would have come up with, this really happened, and this guy's telling the truth. It's that strange. All right, now, at the station, Mustard laid out his own theory. According to Quinn, the detective said, he believes something bad had happened between the couple. Maybe they were fighting and Quinn pushed Huskins down the stairs, or maybe they were experimenting with drugs or sex and something went wrong. Okay, that one's kind of out there. Mustard speculated that Quinn decided to cover up whatever happened with a crazy story. Has this happened before? Yes. People who commit a crime in the heat of, quote, passion, which it doesn't exist. But anyway, somebody kills their significant other and then tries to get rid of their body. Often they come up with a story that sucks because they didn't plan it out. They don't know how crimes work. They're not normal criminals. They're a person who did something, they're probably psychopathic, but they still aren't familiar with criminal behavior. So they take a few movie ideas and chuck them together and come up with, hey, this is what happened, because they don't know how to fake it. This is what he thinks is going on. Okay, so Quinn admitted the whole thing sounded like a movie. Well, like what movie? Gone Girl, right? Like the Gone Girl movie. It's like, hey, Gone Girl was weird, the people did strange things, and hey, but I'm innocent. But he insisted he was telling the truth. More than 10 hours into the interrogation, he agreed to a lie detector test. A polygrapher from the FBI, which had been called in to assist with the investigation, told him afterwards, there's no question in my mind that you failed this test and you failed it miserably. Aaron gripped his head in his hands. I don't know where she is, he said, and eventually asked for a lawyer. All right. The polygraph test, they're used as a technique to try to get people to say what they want. Sometimes, if you're a parent of a missing child and you just want more than anything for the police not to focus on you, sometimes taking the polygraph is totally worth it because you just want them to find your kid. And you'll do anything to prove that you didn't have anything to do with it to get them to find your kid. That's the best circumstance to take a polygraph. Other times, not so much. A polygraph depends on how they ask the questions. A polygraph depends on how your own brain is working. I have used some polygraphs in a couple cases of mine, and I do believe the results of the polygraph. But that's because I created the questions for the polygrapher, and I want to make sure they were not like vague, so you could screw them up. But again, sometimes psychopaths can pass a polygraph and lie like dogs. Sometimes innocent people get things confused in their minds and fail them. So this didn't go over well. I don't know whether he failed it or he didn't fail it. I can't find information on whether the FBI dude was just lying to him to get him to confess or whether he really failed it. In other words, it's a tool It's not proof, which is why you can't use it in court. As the police department prepared a press release, Mustard seemed convinced that he knew how the story would end. "I'm looking for a dead Denise," he said at one point. According to Quinn, Mustard told him, "There ain't going to be a suspect. It's going to be you." All right. Hate on him all you want. But he heard a story with so many red flags in it. And now people will say when they went to the scene, the police didn't handle the scene properly. That they didn't figure out what happened with why there were these cameras. They should have done more with the camera that was supposedly watching, that was put there. I honestly do not know what the police did or did not do with the scene. They could have failed to do proper crime scene evidence analysis. I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm going to say, by the story that Aaron told, this guy truly believed that Aaron had killed Denise. She's gone. The story is stupid. He thinks she's dead. And then things change. All right, let's see how things change. So now she's been missing for 2 days. All right. Let me find the part where she reappears. All right. Hold on a second. I'm trying to find. I want to use this person's stuff because there's so good details on here. It's a very, very good article, and it's got a tremendous amount of information. Where's finding? Okay, Henry Lee. You'll see Henry Lee in the show. He's not. This is Henry Lee is a reporter. Okay, he's not in crime. He's not a pathologist. Okay, this is Henry K. Lee. He's one of the first people to report that Denise Huskins had gone missing. 41 years old. He's a crime reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, and he was pretty much on the television going, she's been let's go back to the couple here for a second because we're not talking about the police. He's pretty much saying that the police are correct, that this guy killed her, blah, blah, blah. And this is where all the shows started coming up with, that he's the suspect and Denise is dead. All right. So time goes on. Let's see. All right. Then Huskins, at 10 a.m. on March 25th, that's 2 days later, Huskins' father, who traveled from Southern California to Vallejo after she was reported missing, notified the police she had received a voicemail from his daughter. She said that she was on her way to his home in Huntington Beach. I don't know. I'm not quite sure where that phone call came in. Okay. But anyway, where her kidnapped had dropped her off. Now, how many kidnappers drop you off at your parents' house? Now we start seeing why the red flags are going up on Denise. When local officers arrived, Huskins was in a neighbor's apartment. Like Quinn, she described a bizarre home invasion involving lasers, swim goggles, wetsuits, and pre-recorded messages. She said her captor took her in the trunk of a car to what seemed like a secluded location several hours from Mare Island. That turns out to be Lake Tahoe, by the way. She was held in a room with a queen-size bed and windows blocked with cardboard. At one point, he bound her to the headboard with zip ties and a bike lock. Huskins told police that she was blindfolded and drugged much of the time, but that she believed her kidnapper was a white man with brownish red hair. He claimed to be working with 3 associates, TJ and L, and said the clients hired them to kidnap people for ransom. After 48 hours, Huskins said the kidnapper, for some reason, decided to release her, which, how often do kidnappers release you without the ransom? And how often do kidnappers even release you? Usually they kill you. He chose Huntington Beach, her hometown, because authorities weren't looking for her there. That's her reasoning why he would drive 6 hours to drop her at her daddy's house. Now think about this. How many kidnappers do that? No, none of them. They dump you in a ditch someplace. Even Sherri Papini's release by her fake kidnappers was more reasonable. She's claiming that the kidnapper drove her to her dad's house 6 hours away. Come on now. Who does that? That's another red flag. All right. On the drive south, he let her ride in the front seat. That's very nice of him. He put blacked out swim goggles over her eyes and then replaced them with tape over her eyelids and a pair of sunglasses. Huskins showed officers a pair of tennis shoes and a water bottle that she said the kidnapper had given her. An officer asked what kind of car he'd been driving. She said it sounded like a Mustang. Sounded like a Mustang. She must know her cars. That actually was a Mustang. When the officer asked her if she'd been sexually assaulted, Huskins said no, and she changed her story later. And I believe her story, the later story, was correct. She was raped twice, but she did not say he raped her. All things considered, she added, the kidnapper had treated her well, supplying food and water and letting her shower in private. So now we have a nice kidnapper. He says the kidnapper's nice. She says the kidnapper's nice. How often do you get a nice kidnapper? Huskins would later elaborate on her captivity, noting that her kidnapper seemed intelligent and socially awkward, and that he told her he'd been in the military and served in the Middle East. Again, a story that seems kind of extreme. The man said that he'd entered Quinn's home 5 times in recent months, even standing outside the bedroom where Huskins was outside the bedroom when Huskins was over. So when she was visiting him, he was like lurking around inside the house 5 times. How often does that happen? Again, she said that he supplied her with toiletries, serving her pizza and wine on a formal place setting. Now, this is going to go back to the Gone Girl thing and how the girl, in that case, the wife who hooked up with the previous supposed rich stalker dude, when she was in his house and he had her sort of forced to stay in his house because now he had her, he also served her fancy things. And in this case, and this is going to go back to what I think that was in the mind of Matthew Muller, the actual kidnapper, which is a Gone Girl thing, which is not the way people think it went down, but this way I think it went down. The man said he'd entered Quinn's home 5 times. Okay. She said that he supplied her with toiletries, serving her pizza and wine in a formal place setting, and screened a French film. Again, something the police might go, seriously? At one point, he showed her a news story that quoted her father and then held her as she cried. I wish we could have met under different circumstances. He told her before letting her go, you're an incredible person. So again, the story is just so weird. Really, the police are going. So you have the nice kidnapper. He doesn't torture you. He feeds you nicely, gives you wine, and hugs you. This is how you spent your captivity. Okay. And she didn't say at the beginning that she was raped. So there you go. When the Huntington police got Matthew Mustard on the phone, Huskins' cousin Nick, who had come to be with her and was an attorney, offered to take the call. The Vallejo detective had been wrong about Huskins' fate. Well, that is true. There was no dead Denise, as Mustard had told Quinn there would be, but he still wasn't buying the couple's account. According to Nick, Mustard said he could offer either Huskins or Quinn immunity if they cooperated with the police. He implied this will be a first-come, first-serve. Mustard has denied making this offer. All right, so now he's saying one of you is lying or both of you are lying. Either Denise was wanting to get attention, playing the Gone Girl thing, or both of you are playing attention then. And the Gone Girl movie totally, where the husband is suspected of killing the wife, and then the wife reappears after being kidnapped. And that's the true Gone Girl story. So he believes that these two maybe were in it together for the whole Gone Girl story. All right? Because the story is too freaking weird, right? It's even weirder than Gone Girl, mind you. I mean, the Gone Girl one, all the wife did in that was, well, she bled out. She made sure she bled out on the floor a lot. She just used like, an IV thing and had the blood pour into a pool. And then she cleaned it up to pretend that her husband had killed her and cleaned it up. And the whole rest of the story is so stupid. It's just not good. But she tried to stage a crime scene where her husband looked like he killed her in Gone Girl. And then she staged kidnapping. Well, that's what he's thinking now. He's like, well, did the two of them get together and she took off in his car and they decided on the story they were going to tell, and they told the story, and there we have total Gone Girl. Okay. So Mustard wasn't alone in doubting the kidnapping story. That afternoon, when they met with the police chief, Andrew Bidou, I'm not sure how to pronounce that dude's name, Bidou, Mustard met with his supervisors and an FBI agent named David Sesma. David Sesma turns out to have dated, some things are really weird in this case. He had actually dated Andrea, the ex-girlfriend. Okay. Well, anyway, and some people make that a big, huge thing that they were in a conspiracy with the Matthew Muller, the actual kidnapper, but there's no proof of that. Anyway, they said that several of the men in the room found it suspicious, more red flags, that Huskins had reappeared near her parents' homes wearing sunglasses and carrying luggage. Luggage. She looked casual, like somebody just came back from a trip, not like somebody who just went through a very traumatic incident. So literally, they have her carrying some luggage. I'm not sure. I'm a little confused on what the luggage was, but anyway, she had luggage with her. So, she's going to her parents' house with luggage doesn't make her look like a kidnapping suspect. So she didn't look like somebody who'd been through a traumatic experience. They looked at her face and they saw darker impression circles consistent with wearing swim goggles. They did see that, but they also noticed she didn't have any apparent injuries, no injuries on her body. When they searched the alley where Huskins said her kidnapper had dropped her off, they didn't find the tape she said she had removed from her eyes. Officers asked a gardener who'd loaned Denise's phone so she could call her father whether she seemed nervous, excited, or scared. The man said no, she seemed completely normal. I'm sorry, but what the heck? If I were on the police department working as a profiler and Denise shows up at her father's house carrying luggage and not just saying, can I borrow your phone? And it's perfectly normal. I'm going to think she's faking it. I can't blame the police on this aspect of it. I just think that's so unfair. And again, it's because all of you know the ending of the story. And now it's Aaron and Denise, they sued the department for claiming that they had made this stuff up and they got a lot of money. Okay, they did. They got a crap load of money. And they, interesting enough, I wondered whether they would stay together, and they have stayed together. So, she can hardly get through her story. She's crying through the whole story. So it does appear she went through a traumatic experience, and now they're married and have 2 kids. Okay, so it's got a sort of happy ending. All right. But at this point, the reason they're not believed and the reason she's not believed is because it doesn't make sense and it doesn't look that way. So then, let's see what happens. So they wondered why, Huskins hadn't accepted an offer to return to the city on a flight the FBI had arranged and why she was now communicating through a lawyer. So she lawyered up really quickly. What's more, they doubted the supposed evidence of a home invasion. Items from Quinn's home that he claimed were left behind after the crime, portable charger, camera, zip ties, goggles, and red tape, would have been props to promulgate the story. So so now they're thinking they just set this whole story up. All right. And that's the way it goes. They said they committed a fraud. And it was very unpleasant for the couple because they weren't believed. All right. So I'm going to go on now to this woman, a detective. And her last name I have real problems with. Her first name is Misty. And I tried to look up because I watched the show a couple nights ago, so I can't remember how her last name was pronounced. Karasu, Carausu, Carausu, Carausu. I would like to call her Detective Carausu, but I'm going to call her Misty because I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name right, but Misty I got right. And so this woman, this detective, first day on her job actually as a detective, ends up theoretically, at least according to documentaries, solved the case. Now, I don't know if she solved it alone or she solved it with help of all the other people in the police department and she's just becoming the star. I don't know the truth on that. But it does appear she did some work that helped solve the case. But what I'm going to point out is how the reason why they didn't solve the case and theoretically she did. There are reasons, and the reasons is she ran into a mountain of evidence and they had a suspect. And when you start with a suspect, you know has committed a crime and there's a mountain of evidence and you can start linking things together. Now, mind you, you should do, some people can't do a good job of linking things together, and she did, or her department did. But at least she had something to work with. They had no suspect. They had no DNA. They had no fingerprints. They had no video. They had a story from 2 people that were so bizarre that it made no sense. And they had no proof. So you can trash them all you want. And you can say she did her job, they didn't, but she also came into it in a really good situation. And I'm going to explain, I'm going to go check your comments, and then I'll explain how she found this Matthew Muller guy, who is a freaking crazy psychopath. I say crazy and psychopath in the same terms because he seemed to maybe have some psychotic stuff going, some oh, he's an interesting character, and he was a Harvard lawyer. And so, we're talking about a guy who is, he's an unusual one. Let's put it that way. Very, very unusual. And a very strange character. And let's see some pictures of him. This is him from jail. This is Matthew Muller speaking out from jail. And I'm going to link that below because you're going to hear, he actually was trying to represent himself in his case. And you can tell by the way he talks that he can be slick, he can be smooth, but he's also very creepy as hell and very psychopathic in my opinion. But that's Matthew Muller. Now, I'm going to check your comments. I'm going to go to how the stuff was figured out and why I still think Gone Girl is part of this case, but not after the fact, but with Matthew Muller. Okay. So, all right, let's see. She found the smoking gun. Yes, she did. Now, mind you, again, she did good work. I'm not objecting to the good work. I don't know whether they failed to do good work. I'm going to explain later one of the reasons I think some of these cases don't get solved. And it's a problem of different jurisdictions and different crimes and how information from each crime, it would be nice if they were all in a database. And I'll explain that. And apparently they did not have a way to, or they didn't access enough information to find out that a crime similar to this might have been committed elsewhere. And that's where the failure came down to. But I think, they were at this point so suspicious of the two of them. I don't even know if it crossed their mind that they might not be lying. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying I can understand it entirely. You have only so much time to investigate stuff. And when you think you're being lied to by two different people, you're pissed more than you want to help them out. All right. So the story was so strange at that time. So in other words, the Aaron Quinn didn't suffer any kind of long-term issues. In the beginning, Denise said she wasn't raped either. She was taken away for a couple of days and kept in a place where she got pizza and wine, and a guy hugged her, and then she was dropped off at Daddy's house. And I'm not saying now, mind you, if you watch the entire documentary, you see the pain she's gone through. She cries through a whole lot of it because she went through a tremendous amount of fear and stress, and she says raped twice. And I believe her because I think the guy was into that. So, but in the beginning, I see why they just would kind of like say, these two are perfectly fine, and did anything really happen to them? Why make up a fantastic story if you want to be believed? Loretta, what I explained before, a lot of people do not know how crimes actually happen. They just don't know. So they overplay their hand, trying to convince. Sometimes when people try to convince, they talk more. They increase what they're saying. So it becomes not a small story, but a really huge story. This is quite common with people who lie, who don't know, like you could say, for example, let's say you're a guy who just was at the office. Your secretary stayed late, and you had sex on your office desk. You get home, your wife says, "Where have you been?" Because you're a little late. The husband's like, in his mind, he's seeing exactly where he was. He was on his office desk on top of somebody. Okay, and now he has to come up with an explanation. Would it be easier if he just simply said, I was looking at some extra paperwork and I got distracted? Well, of course it would. But no, what he says is, well, I was driving home and there was this accident on the road and we got like stuck in that. And then I saw this guy, and this guy was, had trouble with his car. So I went over there and I helped him with that, because now he's trying to play the good guy. So he starts making up this freaking story to the point of like, did you need to make up that story? No, you didn't. You just needed to just basically cover 30 minutes worth of being late. But because he's got guilt in his head, he's trying to come up with something that he thinks his wife will believe, he comes up with some stupid story. This happens quite often. So this is, again, what this detective knows people do that. He's interviewed people before who have made up really stupid stories. And so he's like sitting there going, here we go. And again, I'm just trying to tell you from a point of view that's non-emotional and not from the end of the story. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to add the arrival of aliens then to my false crime story for authenticity. It might work, Don't give people any ideas. Oh my goodness. She had been molested twice in her teens. Yes. Let me point something out here. And this actually, one was supposed to be when she was much younger, and one was when she was drunk at a party. Now, one of the reasons that she's angry about not being believed was she feels like first time that supposedly somebody, and I'm going to say supposedly, I can't say Denise is telling the truth or telling a lie. I actually have zero idea. When I say I was molested in a fun house when I was 12, and I can tell you it's a true story. I've told the story before, but I was molested in a fun house when I was 12. And some people call it was a sexual assault. Some people call it rape, although it wasn't, it was just fingers. But hey, I'll go with sexual assault of a 12-year-old. I never told my mother. I only told one friend. Never told the police. You really have no freaking clue if I'm telling you the truth. You don't. It's my story. I'm telling you a story that I tell you is true. We do not know. This is where the police run into problems too. When people say stuff, and when documentary people do stuff, you never know where the truth lies. So yes, Denise said that when she was, I think, fairly young, she was molested. I think just one time. And I only put quotes around that because I just don't know. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying if she experienced this, it was like something terrible like I experienced, and it's not a good thing. But she didn't report it to anybody. So it wasn't that she wasn't believed, it's that she never told anybody. Now, the second time she claimed it happened was she'd gone to a party, she'd gotten drunk, pretty trash drunk. She was lying on a sofa, and she said when she woke up, a guy had pulled her pants down and put his fingers in her. Okay, similar to the sexual assault experience in the funhouse. All right, that's what she said happened. She did go to the police, but apparently when she got there, she was like outside talking to them. They hadn't even gotten to the official part yet. And the detective told her, it's not going to go well. It's just going to be he said, she said. And he was correct. He's telling you the truth. There is no way that would have gone to court because, first of all, she's dead drunk. Secondly, she didn't suffer any injuries. It was maybe unpleasant. And maybe if she hadn't woken up or whatever, maybe he would have gone further. But all we know is that she claims that the guy pulled her pants down, put his hands in her. That's it. How are you going to prove that in a court of law? He's going to say, I never did that crap. Or if he did do it, he might say, no, we were just messing around on the sofa. We were kissing and hugging. She was very drunk. I was very drunk. Yeah, I pulled her pants down, touched her, but it was consensual. It's never going to fly in a court of law. The detective was correct. He was like telling her sort of save yourself the trouble. Now, I have a different opinion on that. I think, and I would like to see this happen way more often with women who claim they have been sexually assaulted. I would like to see a report filed, even if it never goes anywhere, with the person's name. I would like the name to be in the data bank so that even if you can't prove it, if it happens with two other women and they also put in that claim, you're like, wait a minute, these women didn't even know each other. This happened in 1990. This happened in 1992. This happened in 1995. We got 3 women who claimed the same guy did the same thing to him. I think his name should be in a data bank. But I don't know. There's, most of the time it's like too much work and they don't have a whole way of doing that and so on and so forth. I'd like to see that. But she said that she didn't report the second. So, and she was upset because she said they wouldn't have believed her. That's not the problem. They may have believed her, but they can't do anything with it. So I don't say that she wasn't believed once and she wasn't believed twice. No, that never happened. She wasn't believed the one time she told that story that she had been kidnapped. So it's not an ongoing issue. It's this one incredibly freaky, weird situation, which was such an anomaly, that it was hard to believe. Okay, so I can't blame. This was not a systemic problem that the women aren't believed. No, this was an anomaly, which is so bizarre it was hard to believe. So I think it's just this is where I say people get caught up in emotions and in all kinds of other stuff. And I, as a profiler, say take the emotions away. Look at things as they are. They're not always great. They're not always the way you wish they'd turn out, but sometimes they are the way they are. And so we should be a little bit somewhat reasonable. Let's see. Kelly says they were both extremely subdued in emotion. They really had a tight lid on showing emotion. Yes. And sometimes you show too much emotion, you look like you're faking it. Sometimes you don't show enough emotion, you look like it didn't happen. So we run into that problem. I don't know if it's just the type of people they were. I don't know. Matthew, a normal looking dude, Harvard grad and attorney. Well, generally speaking, people are normal looking people. We aren't hunchbacks of Notre Dame when we commit crimes. I mean, that's why so many serial killers, people have no clue they're going to be a serial killer until they're being killed by them. It's like, dang, I didn't see that coming. I mean, most people are just average looking human beings. Some are better looking, some are not as good looking, but generally speaking, you put a smile on your face, you seem okay. You're imagining a mega incel troll. Well, I just showed you a picture of him. Let me go back to the picture I screwed up. God, I'm so annoyed with myself. I hate it when I do that crap. But I don't like to edit, so there you go. You got to live with what you got to live with. The guy on the bottom, that is Matthew Muller. Looks like that. All right. He's a guy. That's all I can say. He's a guy. That's it. He's a guy. I thought I had another picture of him. Where's the other picture I had of him? I had something else, and I think I forgot to pull it over. Yeah, sure enough, I did. Anyway, he was in the military. He was a Harvard lawyer, but he started having weirder things and later on in life, weirder behaviors. And so we're going to get to good old Matthew in a bit. And how this case finally figured out he was actually what she was. She did walk to the parents' house, not like she had just been kidnapped. It was really weird. It was. That's all you can say. You can see there's a video out there, and you can see her walking to the house. It just doesn't look like a kidnap victim. It does not. Now, I mean, I believe to this day, some people could say, well, maybe all of them, maybe Matthew Muller and Denise were in on this together. Matthew Muller has never claimed any such thing. It doesn't appear to be that kind of thing at all. But, her behavior was subdued, and so was his, and it was odd. So, when you're dealing with things that are just massive oddities, it's really problematic. They talk about the turning his phone off, which was stupid. I'll have to say this about that. It says alleged in as things I've read. I honestly do not know if that's absolutely true. They supposedly put it on airplane mode. Maybe because they were trying not to have it ring while they were talking because they didn't believe him at the time. But apparently it might have helped in finding Denise sooner. So I'm not saying that was a bright move. Again, and not everybody does everything correctly. I screwed up my pictures. I can't even do that right. I used to be a sign language interpreter. Have I ever, in 13 years of sign language interpreting in the emergency room, in the hospitals, did I ever sign a wrong sign? I'm going to say never. Never. But did I? Could my mind have gone off someplace? Could I have been extremely tired because I'd already been working 24 hours? Could I have signed something not quite right? Could somebody have misunderstood me? And could I have caused a problem? I used to run into this interesting problem in signing, and it was an issue about being allergic, being allergic to something, like shrimp, fish. You want a shellfish allergy, right? Shellfish things. You didn't want to be allergic because if you're allergic, then you could become sick and die, right? So anyway, one of the biggest problems with that was apparently a lot of times when I signed, are you allergic to something? The understanding of the allergic sign was kind of weak for some reason in the community I was in. And they would say, yeah, I don't like that. I'm like, no, okay. That's not what I'm saying. And I'd have to stop the doctor and I'd have to sit there and go, okay, doesn't matter if you don't like it. If you don't like fish, if you don't like whatever, if you don't like it, it doesn't matter. What I want to know is if you eat it, will you like and die? I have to go through a whole thing. I wasn't just interpreting the words of the doctor and interpreting the signs of the patient, which is what I was ethically, code of ethics, supposed to do. I wasn't supposed to add anything. I was supposed to but I was so afraid that this is the one thing that would get my patients killed. If they didn't understand the sign, they might die. So I did stop, probably broke the rules and over-explained it because I was trying to be sure they understood the difference between being allergic and just not liking something. Here you are as a police officer, detective, you're case after case after case. You're short on manpower, you're under pressure, you don't have enough sleep. Can somebody make a poor choice? Absolutely. And that's where you go back and look at, reevaluate whether you made all the best choices in handling a certain case. I still think most detectives don't get enough training. Most detectives don't even get any training going into homicide and sex assault and all that. So I believe more training is needed. Absolutely. But we are within situations that we're in. And so was a poor, if they turned off that phone, was it a poor decision to put it on, airplane mode? Perhaps it was a bad decision. But, again, we're looking hindsight, and that's always tricky. You're right, Pat. It was annoying, the police thing, but I see the officer's reasoning, ignore my previous comments. I didn't see them. So I can't, I don't have to ignore them because I never saw them. Let's see. I will say this. It's just like they dropped the case after a while, quit all investigating. Well, here's the problem. Do you investigate something you don't believe is true? I mean, how much investigating do you do on a hoax? If you know it's a hoax, do you keep looking for the people that didn't do it? You know what I mean? Again, limited manpower, limited money. People don't understand how bad it is. Their manpower is very low in general, but it's even lower now. Their police departments can't even staff themselves anymore. But there's always limited money and limited resources. And working any case takes so many man hours. It's ridiculous. And I'm going to do a thing on Scott Peterson because they're going back to trying to say he's innocent. Innocence Project strikes again. But what they're going to do is they always look at something and say the police did not investigate this well enough. And if the police, this is where the reasonable doubt comes in. If they'd only investigated this well enough, they might have found other information. Well, again, how many people do you investigate when you don't think they're involved? How much do you do when you don't think there's any reason to do it? And how much time do you have? Because while they're doing this case, they've got case after case after case coming in. When my daughter was working in homicide, holy crap, she was working during COVID. And she's no longer with the homicide department. She's in a different department now, close to retirement. But she was almost never home. They had cases come in like sometimes twice in a night. And then you try to assign them to different detectives, and the detectives are running around trying to do interviews, paperwork, massive amounts of freaking paperwork, and trying to find people that don't want to be found, and waiting for labs, and oh my God. And then as soon as they're in this case, another case comes in. Somebody else gets murdered. Like, for God's sakes, I'm not even finished with this case. So this is what I'm trying to bring understanding. That's all. Try to bring understanding to how these cases work. All right, now let's go to Matthew Muller. That's Matthew Muller behind me. Matthew Muller, this is when he was in the military, and this is him in prison. Now, do you see everything? Am I here? Is everything good? Oh my God. You're still here. You're not gone, girl. I'm not gone, girl. All righty. Well, that's good news. Oh, I never went away. See, you have things going all over the screen. And sometimes I wish just to have a camera over here just showing you what's really happening to me. Anyway, that's Matthew Muller. All right. I want to talk about this dude is an anomaly. The guy's a fruitcake along with being a psychopath. And this is where everything went bad for this case. All right. Let me go back to Matthew Muller, how he got caught. Now this is where I talk about. Let me go back to our Misty, and I think she is a really good detective. So believe me, I like her. I like her a lot. Let me tell you the story of Misty. By the way, this site that has this great stuff on. I'm going to link below. Is by Katya Savchuk. That's who wrote this, and it's very comprehensive. The best thing I found on this, and so I always appreciate a good writer who put a tremendous amount of effort into this. So she's talking about this whole thing is about Matthew Muller. She says a Harvard-trained lawyer was convicted of committing bizarre home invasions. Psychosis may have compelled him to do it. But in a case that became a public sensation, he wasn't the only one who seemed to lose touch with reality. Now, by the way, psychosis didn't make him do it. Psychopathy made him do it. But he did have, I think, some psychotic stuff. And I think they can overlap. And I think this is important because he had a fantasy world going, and a very unusual fantasy world that came from his time in the military and his time with Harvard and some of his failures in life, which he did seem to believe there were people after him, that there were people, spying on him and all this kind of stuff. But he also loved the concept of being part of a spy team or part of some kind of a 3-person team, which he tried to, and in these cases, he tried to pretend, as he did with the couple, that there was more than one person there. And sometimes he even talked to the other people that weren't there. Not because necessarily psychotic, but he wanted to present this scenario. Very, very weird dude. All right. So now let me tell you how it was found out who he was. And this is where I want to point out that this poor guy had none of this information. Okay. She did get lucky in the sense that he screwed up. He screwed up. And when he screwed up, that was how they caught him. So it was Matthew Muller that provided the smoking gun. And then he provided a whole lot. He was a very careless guy in many ways. And he was also a pack rat. He didn't like to give crap up. So he kept all the evidence. Okay. So it wasn't like he just, after he finished a home invasion, after he finished kidnapping Denise, he went and just got rid of everything that had to do with that crime, which would have been smart. But he didn't do that because he was living in a bit of his own world. And he never thought he'd get caught. He's also arrogant. And if you watch the video I'm linking below for him in prison, he's arrogant as all get out. All right. So anyway, just after 7 a.m. on June 9th, 2015, Misty Karasu, and I apologize for pronouncing the name wrong, joined a group of police officers lining up outside a dark green cabin with white trim. The blinds inside were drawn. And there was, she was 35 years old, and she was the only woman, and she's also was the first basic case she worked, first day as a detective. Who gets a case like this on their first day? Unbelievable. En route to the scene, she'd been filled in on the case. Now, here's the case. Around 3:30 a.m. the previous Friday. Now, let me tell you when this happened. This happened on June 2nd, 2015. The kidnapping of Denise was on March 23rd, 2015. So we're talking 3 months later. So the Huskins case happened in March, 3 months later. So now in March, they've got no evidence, zero. They didn't have the vehicle that was, she said it was a white Mustang. They never found the vehicle. They hadn't found the vehicle. She thought it was a Mustang. They hadn't found the vehicle. They hadn't found anything that could actually link to a person. 3 months later, he commits another crime. Now listen to this crime he committed. All right. So So 3 months later, a 52-year-old nurse named Lynn Yen, she lived on the edge of Dublin, the suburb east of San Francisco, where she worked. That was her district, right? And she had called 911. Minutes later, Lynn and her 60-year-old husband, Chung, minutes earlier, Lynn and her 60-year-old husband, Chung, woke to a flashlight and a laser shining in their faces. Does this sound familiar? This is the first time that laser thing pops up. So again, I don't know, again, a lot of times the police departments don't have a real good way of putting in all the details. There's a thing called VICAP through the FBI. And VICAP is where a lot of sexual homicides and serial rapes, the concept is when you have one of those, you put in the details, like a knife was used, the person used pantyhose to strangle, the guy carved an X on her head, whatever. Anything specific that would be maybe matched to other crimes. Most of the VICAP stuff doesn't do a whole lot of good because so many crimes are very simple and similar. Like, woman got strangled, and then somebody else gets strangled. Well, you never know if that's the same guy because that's just a way to do things, and strangling is simple and it's not very unique. Only when you have very unique stuff can you say, but this isn't even, at this point, this isn't a known rape. This isn't a known home invasion even. And some of the other stuff, it's like it's not necessarily going into VICAP. A lot of police departments don't even have the energy to fill out the freaking forms because they're really long. So they don't even send the stuff into VICAP. So nobody has the time. So that there was a laser used 3 months earlier, they just thought it sounded like a made up piece of crap. But now they do have an instance, an actual crime with the lasers used. So now we have something interesting. She said a laser was shining in their faces. A masked man dressed in black stood at the foot of their bed. We have your daughter and she's safe. Does that sound familiar? It sounds like a kidnapping thing again. All right. The man said, Kelly, 22, that's her daughter, had been in her bedroom across the hall. Now, prior to this, I would point out Matthew Muller had home invaded. I'll discuss some of those, but he had not attempted to kidnap anybody. Rape was still in his mind. Sometimes he didn't seem to go through with it, but rape was in his mind. But this is a second time we hear something that sounds like it's going to be a kidnapping. Sounds like he's going to kidnap Kelly, okay? Just like he kidnapped Denise 3 months earlier, because he did have success kidnapping Denise and taking her to a location of his own where he kept her and wined and dined her and raped her. Okay? And now I think Kelly, 3 months later, he was going, I'm going to do it again. All right. So it sounds like the same scenario, same MO. Using what Lynn described as a calm, soft voice, the intruder told the couple to turn over and put their hands behind their backs. Then he announced he would tie them up. Now, again, very similar MO. This 3 month later crime is similar to this crime. Now this is where you start being able to link things together because now you have more information later on. But what happened here was when Chung felt the man touch him, he took a swing. So basically, thank you very much to this couple and and to Chung, because Chung was the one that broke this case open when you come right down to it, because he fought back. When Chung felt the man touch him, he took a swing. Lynn grabbed her phone, and Lynn helped break the case. From the nightstand, locked herself in the bathroom and called for help. She told the dispatcher that she heard fighting. Then her husband yelled, honey, go get the gun, even though they didn't own one. These people are good. A few minutes later, the intruder fled downstairs and out the back door. Now, when the officers arrived, Chung had bruises on his arms and a face and was bleeding from a cut above his ear. And he had said the intruder had hit him with a metal flashlight. He's got at least some damage to him, which, let's go back, Aaron did not. A window near the back door was open and the screen had been removed. Now we do have evidence of breaking and entering. Again, didn't have it in the Denise Huskins case. In the couple's bedroom, police found a black wool glove and 3 plastic zip ties. On a gravel path behind the house, near a cluster of foxtails, they recovered another zip tie and a 6-inch shred of black duct tape. So now they're finding evidence strewn further back, and these people called right away. They said, we just got attacked. He's still bleeding. We just got attacked. Not like he didn't call like many, many hours later. So the police came and immediately believed something had happened here. Kelly, who was unharmed, handed Sergeant something she'd found on the hallway cabinet near her room, a cell phone she didn't recognize. It was a cell phone that was the smoking gun in this. So this was amazing, a cell phone. So Muller screwed up. He botched this crime because he had two people who fought back. Good for them. Police later traced the phone number. And it's also good that Muller didn't seem to be a murdering kind. He was a kidnapping kind and maybe a raping kind, but he wasn't at this point a murderer. Okay, for whatever reasons, he wasn't into murder. Police later traced the phone number to the cabin Caruso and her colleagues were now preparing to enter. So the phone took them, should have been a burner phone, dude. Use a burner phone, but he didn't. He used a phone that actually linked straight to where he lived. Or this is actually his mother's place. They entered this. It was on a residential street in South Lake Tahoe, 130 miles from Dublin. So you're not talking 2 hours. The guy didn't mind driving. That's why it's not so unusual that he drove Denise 6 hours south. He didn't mind driving. As the raid began, Caruso heard the cabin's front door splinter. Officers barked search warrant, and they shoved through a barricade of chairs. Caruso, Misty, maneuvered around the clutter on the living room floor, a set of crutches, license plates, clothing, electronics, and a massage table. Empty boxes were piled against a window. Open bottles of wine and cans of spray paint littered the kitchen counters. He's a slob. Her job was to process the evidence. She snapped photos of and this is what was in that cabin. And this is why, finally, they could solve a crime from 3 months earlier. She snapped photos of a black ski mask, black duct tape, mismatched black gloves, a stun gun sat on a rocking chair. Remember, Aaron said a stun gun was used? A stun gun sat on a rocking chair. In a banker's box, she found more duct tape and gloves along with walkie-talkies, a radar detector, zip ties, rope, and a device for making keys, which is how he got into a lot of people's houses. In a bathroom were makeup brushes and a partly empty bottle of NyQuil. And it was claimed by Aaron NyQuil was used. Not that you can't have NyQuil if you're not committing. No, yeah, I have NyQuil. A lot of people do, but still, there it is. An open bottle of golden brunette hair dye lay on a sink near a disposable glove stained with the dye's residue. In one bedroom were 3 more gloves, yellow crime scene tape, and on the bed a spiked dog training collar. Interesting. And another about a bottle of Vaseline lotion. We can pretty much know what that was used for. And paper towels and a penis pump. This is creepy, she remembers thinking. No kidding. So anyway, she collected all that. They also collected flashlights, cell phones, hard drives, several computers, including an Asus laptop. They found Aaron's laptop there that had been stashed under a mattress. This guy did not know how to get rid of crap. If you don't want to be implicated in a crime, you get rid of everything after the crime. This guy is like not so good at that. Around noon, they also drove to a tow yard to search a stolen white Mustang recovered near the cabin. This is the Mustang that Denise said she was in. Inside, they found items they thought could be linked to the Dublin break-in. 2 gloves matching one from the crime scene, both covered in foxtails. They have foxtails outside, so now they're connecting it to the Dublin crime scene without question. Receipts for a flashlight, a speaker, and zip ties purchased near Dublin the night of the home invasion. Burglary tools and a metal flashlight, which was used to hit the guy over the head. The back seat of the Mustang had been removed. Interesting. She thought it was possible that somebody had made room for a large object such as a body, or were planning to put the 22-year-old in there. That's what I think. Strangely, other clues didn't seem to connect to the Dublin crime. Among the recent destinations on the car's GPS was an address in Huntington Beach. So now you've got another smoking gun. I mean, it's in the GPS, Huntington Beach, 400 miles south of Lake Tahoe. In the trunk, Caruso saw a blood pressure cuff. Remember the whole thing about them getting their blood pressure taken, which sounded totally retarded? They found the blood pressure cuff, a camouflage tarp, and a mesh vest with a wireless speaker in one of the pockets. She also found a BB gun, a dart gun, and a Nerf super soaker that had been painted black with a flashlight and a laser pointer taped to the barrel. So now we have the laser for both of the crimes. Stuffed in a large duffel bag was a blow-up doll in black clothing, rigged with wiring so it could be made to sit or stand. I think this was one of his fake extra people. The bag also contained a military-style pistol belt. Its pouches crammed with 2 pairs of Speedo swim goggles. Now we've got the swim goggles that were used in the Vallejo crime. Now we have proof of that. But here's where it really gets important. She pulled them out, the swim goggles, black duct tape, or covered the lenses, as was said by the couple. Caught in the tape was a long strand of blonde hair. Now, this is the biggest smoking gun, in my opinion. None of the victims in the Dublin home invasion were blonde. They were Asian descent. They weren't blondes. And they didn't have bleached hair. So they weren't blonde. Neither was the suspect, which he now knew because he was being taken out of the house in handcuffs, right? Now, he resembled Charlie Sheen with a chiseled jawline and tousled blonde, dark hair. All right. And off he goes. And she finds out he's Matthew Muller. That's who he is. And so now I'm not going to go into Matthew Muller's whole background. You can read the whole article for that because it is fascinating. What a whack job. Anyway, now let's not, and this whole thing about how she became a police officer. I'm looking for the next part where about the previous crimes. It's a very long article, and I appreciate that because it's rare today that we have actual true investigative journalism, and this is one of the few true investigative journalist articles I've seen in a long time. All right, I'm going way down. This is going to take me a long time to find this next spot I want to talk about. All right. Okay, let's see here. This is interesting. So she does research. Where's the heck is her research? Okay, where's my research here? Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to try to go back to where she found out all the different things that he had done. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on. Here we go. All right. All right, so hold on. This is an extremely long article. Essentially, I think you have to read the whole article. Essentially, what they found out was that she found out there were a couple other crimes that were similar. Let me tell you what they were. There was a crime in 2009 in Mountain View. The person broke into the woman's house, did a lot of the similar stuff, but did not kidnap her, but the same MO. Didn't rape her, but was planning to, but then somehow she talked him out of it, supposedly. In Stanford, there was another one. No one was arrested, but he was lurking in the area, so they actually knew his name and thought maybe he had something to do with it. So in 2009, there were these two things. In 2012 in Stanford, there was another one with a similar MO. So this guy is a serial person, serial wannabe rapist. I think he was working toward rape. And then between 2014 and 2015, what happened was when she found the white Mustang, she looked, find out who it belonged to. It turned out to belong to a guy on Mare Island. Now, mind you, Muller also lived on Mare Island. And so did Quinn. Aaron Quinn also lived on Mare Island. So take a look back at this is Mare Island. And all three of them lived there, okay? So this was his original kind of like where he's always hanging out. He stole, so Muller stole the white Mustang from a neighbor on Mare Island, and he then used that to run around with. Now he went over. He went over to. He did use the Quinn's car, but I think he parked the Mustang where he parked it. Bard walked over to Quinn's house, stole his car, took the car there, left it in the parking lot right next to the Mustang, and took the Mustang off. I guess there were no video cameras around, CCTV or anything. So I haven't heard anything about CCTV following any of these vehicles. But anyway, he's running around with this Mustang. But it says here, between 2014 and 2015, there was a guy that was called the Mare Island Creeper. He was peeping in people's windows, a peeping Tom. And remember, I've talked many times about how peeping Toms are sexual predators. And when they're just ignored, like, okay, just peeped in a window, we can't do anything about it. Not a big deal. It is a big deal. Peeping Toms they're sexual predators. At that point, what they're doing is one of two things. Just in the beginning, if it's early in their career, they're just starting to invade somebody else's territory. They're peeping in at women, looking in their houses and imagining them. And then they go home and probably masturbate. Some of them will actually then get into the house and they'll do things like take their underwear. One guy used to chew gum and put it in their underwear drawer. So when the girl pulled out the underwear, she goes, how did this chewing gum get in my underwear? It's gross, you know? And he would laugh thinking that she was going to find that. So he's invading her territory and starting to do sexual things. And then from that point on, they can move into touching women in public, like, you know, just brushing against them. And then eventually they will break into their homes and actually rape them. And some of them will go on to be serial rapists. Some will go on to be serial killers. Now, he was already sneaking around. So this was 2014 to 2015. He already has 2009 to 2012. He's already got home invasions. And we also don't know if he's done other stuff, but he was creeping around in Mare Island. Now, he also was a big person he did a lot of reconnaissance before he did this. He liked to be kind of a spy. So he did find out people's addresses, their names. Then he peeped in their windows and he figured out who he wanted to go after. He did a lot of work, which is why he's such an anomaly and so freaky. Because most guys are just going to find a woman at home alone. That's good enough. I don't care what her name is. I'm just going to go in and rape her and take off. And that's a smarter method. But he had this whole thing because he was a very bright man. I mean, obviously he's a Harvard lawyer, been in the military. He was into this whole big reconnaissance planning thing. And so he did get a tremendous amount of information on Aaron Quinn. The reason he thought that Denise was the ex-girlfriend was because they looked similar enough, and he had no idea that one had replaced the other. So he assumed, but he wasn't trying to go after the girl specifically because it was Andrea. It turned out to be Denise. He didn't really care. It's just that that's who he thought she was when he was doing his reconnaissance and trying to get all the information so he could do this really amazingly cool thing. And he'd worked up to it. He'd done home invasions and controlling women. And now he'd moved up to kidnapping. And the kidnapping included rape. And I believe that 3 months after that crime, had he been able to kidnap the 22-year-old, she would have gone to Lake Tahoe, just like Denise did, because that's where Denise was at. She was in that house. That's the house she was staying in when he was keeping her captive for 2 days. He would have brought the 22-year-old there and repeated what he did with Denise. He would have kept her captive, probably raped her nicely, because he doesn't believe in being mean. He just wants to make love, without their permission. So anyway, he would probably have raped her for 2 days and then brought her back too, because he wasn't into killing. So he would have returned her the same way. But now he would have had two crimes that looked absolutely similar. So maybe there would have been a proper investigation at that point. But so anyway, he's now creeping around the Mare Island. And so he's doing that. Now, the blonde hair, so Misty here, she now has the connection to Mare Island. She starts looking up police. She's heard now there's, the stories are out there. They're on in the media all over the place. And she runs into the story, the other story, right? And she goes, oh my God, that woman's got blonde hair. And everything that is happening is everything has happened in the MO in the past and in the future. So she's seeing crimes on both sides of the Huskins investigation that match the MO. and especially the last one, because it would look like an intended kidnapping. And now, of course, they also found, you know, they found Aaron's laptop, so we pretty much know it's connected. But she's got the blonde hair, and she sees that it matches the person in the Vallejo crime. So all of this comes together. They've arrested Matthew Muller. He's got 40 years, and so it goes. Now, how did, again, Matthew Muller get caught? He got caught because two people fought back, and he screwed up. And he's a pack rat. Those are the three basic reasons. And if you're going to do really strange and unusual crimes, you just don't want to leave things that are going to connect to you eventually. You know, and the more unusual you make the crime, eventually, yeah, you will be found out. I wish they had connected the earlier home invasions with the bizarre behaviors together, so that when this happened, what should have happened was they could have simply put in these different things, goggles, whatever, different things that happened in the crime, and it would have matched the earlier home invasions. And Mueller was connected to one of those home invasions. That would have been ideal. That did not apparently happen. I don't know if it's because they don't have a good system from one county, because this what happened here in Vallejo was not the same jurisdiction as what happened in the other one. So the other jurisdictions had their police report, and it's been filed. Never caught the guy, don't know who it is. They filed it, so be it. Now he's got this crime. It doesn't sound right, but he's also got no way necessarily to check it out with another jurisdiction. If he had been obsessed, could he have? Yes. I think that if he could have had a clue that there was any similar crime out there, or that these people could be telling the truth, he might have called all these different jurisdictions and say, have you ever heard of this MO? Could that have been done? Sure. Under the best of circumstances. And I say I wasn't there at the time. I don't know. I don't know that I would have thought they were telling the truth either. Therefore, since if you've never heard of any similar crime, you might just think they're lying. But I would like to see a better system that would have logged in these behaviors like the VICAP system the FBI has, because these behaviors were so distinct. What the MO is so bizarre that had it flagged, this crime had flagged the two previous home invasions, they might have caught Matthew Muller before he went and did the one 3 months later. Thank God those people fought back and he screwed up, because God knows if he's already into rape, he's already a serial rapist, right? A serial kidnapper now and a serial rapist. He could well become a serial killer. But either way, nothing whatever happened to these people is something that should happen to anybody. What happened to Denise and Aaron should never happen. And they went through hell, especially when they weren't believed. I can't believe them. I understand why they're angry, because they went through all the massive emotions. So do I really think it was fair that the police department took all the heat for that and got sued for that? I'm on the fence. I don't really know whether they failed in other parts of what they should have done investigatively, but all I can say is I certainly get why they thought they were lying. That's all I can say. I'm just not going to jump to a conclusion there, because I just don't know. And yes, she did end up with her police department solving the crime essentially, but they had the smoking gun. They had the smoking gun, a mother load of evidence, DNA evidence. They had the actual guy. They had everything. It was a matter of linking things together to figure out what else he's done. And because he made it so easy to figure out what else he's done, they did. And so of course they make it more dramatic in the show, but I'm saying they did good work. They did absolutely good work, but they didn't have the smoking gun and the mother load of evidence and a person. They did. So just to be a little fair, it was a lot easier for them 3 months later than it was for them. Now, I'm going to mention one more thing, and then I'll go to your comments. The Gone Girl thing. This is what I think is kind of interesting. Again, let's go back to Gone Girl stuff. What I want to point out, as far as the intersection between media and real life. as I pointed out, Sherri Papini, I will link my thing to her. So Sherri Papini. So the book came out 2012. The film came out in 2014. Sherri Papini case was 2016. Only 2 years after the movie, the Sherri Papini case happened. And she did essentially fake a kidnapping. And the question is, did she see Gone Girl? And I know it's been a while since I even looked at that case. I don't remember whether that was ever a question in the case or when anybody ever interviewed or found out whether anybody said, oh yeah, she saw Gone Girl. I wonder, it was a very popular movie. And the book was very popular. I wonder, did Sherri Papini see Gone Girl and decide this would be cool? Because in Gone Girl, okay, she gets away with it. Sorry, guys. But she gets away with it because in that case, the police really are stupid because they don't do any proper investigation. So they believe that, she has blood all over and she escapes from this crazy guy. She wins. And Sherri Papini, I believe, thought if she reenacted something similar, while rounding around on the highway, I was kidnapped for all this time, she would be believed and she would be a media sensation. She would be a survivor of a horrific crime. And she'd get massive attention because Sherri Papini does exhibit Munchausen syndrome, which is, as I point out, not a condition, but a behavior of psychopathy. I believe Sherri Papini is a psychopath, and she exhibited Munchausen syndrome, which is a way to get attention. In her life, she had done a lot of things, Sherri Papini did, that her family has told about, where she has claimed things happened to her and people did things to her that never actually happened. That's Munchausen syndrome. So getting attention by being kidnapped, hooray, that's great. So that would have been 2016. So again, Gone Girl book, 2012. Gone Girl movie, 2014. This crime, 2015. And Sherri Papini, 2016. Now, this crime was also, Sherri Papini's crime was 2 years after the movie. This crime was 1 year after the movie. Or I don't exactly know what month the movie came out. It could even be half a year. Obviously, the Gone Girl movie made people think that Denise had lied, that she faked her kidnapping, made her husband look like he did something to her, just like the movie, but then reappeared, saying she had been kidnapped. Exactly the same scenario as Gone Girl. It's exactly the same, with some fancy added crap, but exactly the same. That's why the media and the police thought it's fake. Now let's go to Matthew Muller and Gone Girl, because the one thing we don't know is that, did Matthew Muller also see Gone Girl? Because look at this. This is just, I don't know if this is true. I'm just throwing this out there. If anybody ever finds out that he saw Gone Girl, I'd be curious. First of all, he liked to read. He told Aaron, you should read. The guy is very smart, probably reads really quickly, and he's got a lot of time on his hands, apparently. Is he reading stuff? And he was also married, too. It was his wife reading stuff. Does his wife say, hey, hon, let's go see Gone Girl? Did he read the book? Did he watch the movie? Because here's why I think he might have. Because he actually set up the entire, now before this, mind you, he'd done home invasions where he pretended stuff. That he was with this group or whatever, and we were going to do this and that, and you just have to follow my advice. So he was already doing creepy things, mind you. But I wonder if Gone Girl threw him into the kidnapping scenario, because the Huskins case was the first theory that I know of kidnapping scenario. And in that, what did he do? He set the husband up as the fall guy, because he would know the husband looked guilty as hell. He's a very smart guy. He would know after what he did that the husband would look like he killed Denise. And what did he do with Denise? He took her to a private place, as did in the movie. Let me put up the picture and point to the right guy. This guy in the movie supposedly kidnapped her, but she did. She went to him, but then he kept her in his fancy, he was a multimillionaire, and he kept her for basically captive. He did at that point, because she picked a guy who was already a stalker, so she was a little bit of an idiot. But anyway, so he takes her to a cabin. Isn't quite as fancy, but what does he do? He keeps her in captivity, and he wines and dines her. Wine, hugs, food. He's being nice to her, just like the guy in the movie. And then he takes her and lets her escape by allowing her to go away. He lets her escape, except he doesn't end up dead, but she escapes and returns home, and people go, oh, look, here she is. And because the Gone Girl movie is out, they're going to suspect her of lying. They're going to suspect the husband may be lying. It's the Gone Girl movie again. But the question I have is, did he see the movie and plan his MO from the Huskins case onward? That one in March, and then the new one with the next couple and their daughter that he was probably going to kidnap and take to the same location. Was he now in the Gone Girl mode? There's a weird thing that happens with people, is that a lot of what they do in life depends on whatever incoming information they have. We act sometimes the way we see other people act. We are influenced by books, by movies, fantasies, dreams, all kinds of things influence us as to what we want. We might see a movie. Let's say we see a movie on mountain climbing, and we decide we want to be mountain climbers. I know that I grew up seeing Tarzan when I was a little kid, and I always hated cold weather. And I saw a Tarzan movie, and I'm like, I want to go to Africa where those palm trees are and the monkeys and stuff. And when I was 19, I went to West Africa. I did, based on the fact that I'd seen a movie. And it was just a fictional movie, and probably not one of the best ones either, but it gave me an idea. And so sometimes we take things from fictional life and make them into real life, either just as an inspiration to us, or we copy them. So Gone Girl, clearly, these two got accused of being, especially Denise, of when they couldn't believe them, the media went berserko and said it's a Gone Girl scenario. But I don't know they've ever talked about this guy, maybe also being the one who put together the Gone Girl scenario. So these poor guys, these poor guys would look like the Gone Girl scenario. So did he set them up? So when you come down to accusations of who's terribly guilty about everything, the police all screwed up and he's a bad guy because he didn't believe them. Hey, the real culprit here, the real person is this guy. First of all, he committed the home invasions. He committed kidnapping. He committed rape. And he set this couple up. He set them up by looking into everything about them, figuring out how to do all this stuff, planning everything out, having everything set up. The stolen car, the place where he's going to take the woman, everything. So if he saw a Gone Girl, he may have used that to set them up to look like exactly what they ended up looking like. So maybe he's responsible for that as well. We can't always blame even the media, who obviously got carried away, saying these two, now we don't think they're telling the truth. We think it's a big fat hoax. Well, because it looked like a big fat hoax, because maybe this guy made sure that it did. So I find that quite fascinating. So anyway, let me get to some of your comments. That's it. Okay. Let's see. I don't use blinds. I use room darkening shades. I don't use anything. I hate anything on my windows. Let's see. Let's see. I'm backing up. Gone Girl got good reviews. It seems, Pat. How come you hated it? Well, first of all, I hated the protagonist. I mean, I didn't like anybody in the movie. So it's one of those things where you don't care what happens to anybody, because they're all crappy people. And it was ridiculous. The whole crime scene was ridiculous. Everything in the movie was not believable. Not because, now mind you, with the Huskins case, that wasn't very believable either, but it was physically possible to do. Whereas the crime scene she set up in Gone Girl didn't make any sense. For example, she poured all this blood onto the floor, like a ton of blood. And the claim, she had this leg of something. And the idea was that she was hit with it. The kidnapper hit her with it. No, I'm sorry. The husband hit her with it, right? And then it killed her, and she went on the floor and bled out. But the blood is only in one place. There's not like blood drips other places. There's not like drag marks that were wiped away. There's just this one thing of blood that's wiped away. So she did a poor job, theoretically. Then there was a question: how did she leave the house with nobody seeing? It was the middle of the dang day, and nobody saw her leave. She supposedly got a car that was she bought a car off of Craigslist, but there had to be some transaction, but there doesn't seem to have been. So apparently she commits this crime, wipes all this stuff up. She writes an entire fake diary and hides it. And the thing she does would have set up, when the police looked at the stuff, they would have said none of this makes sense. And not in the same way that the Huskins case didn't make sense. It would just be that the setup was so bad that she was trying to make it look like her husband killed her, but there were so many things wrong about it. You could say the husband didn't know what the hell he was doing, but how did she get away the way she did? And after she got hooked up with the other guy, there's a whole bunch of things that just doesn't work. Let me put it that way. There's plot holes all over the place. Ridiculous stuff that, like she comes home from the hospital after she's checked for being raped. And she comes home with blood all over her still. I'm like, who the heck leaves the hospital with blood all over him? There are a lot of stupid things in the film. I don't like it. I mean, I found it long, draggy, didn't like the characters, and I thought a lot of the stuff was stupid. But there were some good aspects to it as well. So I would say a lot of people would enjoy it. And if you're checking this out and checking out the Matthew Muller thing, do watch the movie, because you'll see why after the movie came out, people thought that she was faking. And Sherri Papini a year later did a Gone Girl thing. And you'll also see why maybe Matthew Muller set them up to be a Gone Girl scenario and got a kick out of it. He's like somewhere off there watching them. It was kind of funny. Actually, he did send emails saying, look, I really did kidnap her. He actually did say that, because he got to this point where he was annoyed that they didn't believe her. So I don't know whether he said it, if this guy goes back and forth on his thinking. So one could say, okay, if he sent the email saying, no, I did do it, so stop blaming her, that he wanted to get the attention of being a really cool kidnapper. But then again, who knows that he didn't start with a certain idea and then up with a different idea, because that's what they do. They change their minds on things. He changed his mind a lot in the middle of committing crimes. He changed his mind and did weird things. So he's an interesting character, let's say that. So I don't know, but it's the whole Gone Girl thing was quite interesting. But generally, Gone Girl did make a good comment in the movie. The detective in the movie, who was the only person I actually liked, said this: when you find, how is this? All you find is evidence that the person died in the house, and not that they're removed. Oh, wait a minute. How did she put that? Oh, crap. Now I can't remember how she put it. Darn it. There's a good comment how on one hand you look at the husband, and on the other hand you actually look at a kidnapping. And it's these different things that help you look one direction or the other. I wish I remember what she said. Darn, I'm annoyed with myself. Since I don't write everything down before I do shows, and then I think about, oh yeah, I meant to talk about that. And I don't remember what it was. Oh, I can't remember what she said. But generally speaking, yes, when a person disappears out of a home, majority of the time you are looking at the husband. When the husband says, this is what happened. He makes up a story, and you can't find any proof that somebody else actually kidnapped the person. You don't have the proof. That's a problem. And so you look back at the husband and say, what did he do? Did he kill her and try to get rid of the body? I mean, that's your normal thing. So in order to go for have it be a kidnapping, you have to have enough evidence that somebody actually was kidnapped. Otherwise, you're not going to look that direction. And unfortunately, in this circumstance, there wasn't very good evidence that she was kidnapped. One of the problems was the car too, because the kidnapper took her car. His car. Muller took his car and just drove it very, very close by. And it looks like the husband is dumping the body, pretending that the car was stolen and walking home. So you see, a lot of things Muller did made it look like the couple wasn't telling the truth. Now, again, do I know that's what he planned, that the couple would look like liars? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about the Gone Girl thing. Maybe he never really planned it that way. Maybe he's just so into his own scenario that he figured the police would believe them, but he didn't care. Like, maybe he actually did want the thrill of, the police looking for this army of kidnappers, and then she would show up and she would tell her story eventually, and he'd feel cool because he'd know it was him, but they were all looking for him. Maybe he wanted the notoriety and didn't get it. It's possible. Again, you can't get into somebody else's head, especially a psychopath, because they can, again, have one idea and translate it into something else. So I still think it's very Gone Girlish what Matthew Muller did. So I still think he saw the movie. How he employed that in his thinking pattern, I'm not him, and I don't want to be him. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's what I was just talking about. I've forgotten about that part. Again, I think maybe, there was this point about him supposedly kept feeling sorry for the girls. Like one girl said, "I just was raped," and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to do that to you again, so I won't rape you. But why don't you get a better system in your house to prevent people like me from coming in?" Gave her some tips. So there were moments when he appeared to be kindly toward his victims, his female victims. Maybe he saw that she was traumatized, and okay, now this is where, if he's not a psychopath, mind you, which he is. So I can't go there with that because psychopaths don't have empathy. So I think he was more annoyed, maybe at that point, even though it played out like Gone Girl. He's like, that he still wanted the attention. And then when they thought that she really was faking it, he's like, "Oh, come on, no, I'm the one who did all this cool stuff." I mean, it may have just been an ego thing. I don't know if he changed his mind. Did he feel sorry for her? Get out of here. You don't kidnap somebody, terrorize them, rape them, keep them locked up because you feel sorry for them, because you have empathy for them. No, if you can do all those things, you don't care about how they feel. Now, you may pretend you care how they feel. It may make you feel good. Maybe he wants to feel good about himself. At a certain point, he's like, "Oh, they're saying these things and they're making me I'm a bad guy. The girl said she was raped, so I won't rape her again because that would make me a bad guy." That can be something in his own little head, that he's setting up his own fake scenario for what a great guy he is. Again, getting into the mind of a psychopath is worthless. You can't do it. All I can tell you is, no, he did not feel sorry for her. So if anything he did was for his own benefit, for whatever kicks he got. And I say this guy was very much bouncing off of walls and stuff. So I think he did have behaviors where some would just say he's psychotic. I do think there might be some psychotic issues with him, some paranoia, some things that weren't just psychopathy. But again, you can have two of those together. That's not like it's not like you have to always be just a psychopath or just a person that's suffering from psychotic issues. You can actually have them both together. Sometimes people are psychopaths and then become psychotic. So in other words, psychopathy always comes first. Let me put it that way. Psychopathy comes first. It happens when you're a child. You become a psychopath somewhere along the way. Then you could have experiences. You could do drugs. You could, he claimed Agent Orange did something to him when he was in the military. You could, something that also messes up your brain. So now you've got psychotic problems on top of psychopathy. But it's not the other way around. usually you're just not normal human being, have a like you're not schizophrenic, but not psychopathic, and then just become psychopathic. No, it would be the opposite. You'd be psychopathic, and then you might develop schizophrenia and have those two mixed together. It's yeah. So why he does things, because he wants to do those things, because it's fun. So that's why you have to click on that link and listen to him talk. And most people catch that he's psychopathic. They can see his arrogance, they can see his coldness and his manipulativeness. You can see all of that in there, and he's perfectly clear as a bell. Yeah, he's truly an anomaly. He's a total fruitcake. Well, yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, he was such an anomaly that it just didn't match anything. It just didn't match. He obviously had fantasies that he liked to play out. So he went from, God knows what he was before. You know, I'm sure there were times when he did other peeping Tom, maybe some other sexual assaults. Who knows what he's done in his entire life. But apparently he really got into a fantasy thing and liked playing these games, putting on his, wetsuit, which he actually did have a wetsuit. They found that too. He got into a complete fantasy thing and played out a really cool game, in the game that he had set up in his mind. So most serial killers and serial rapists aren't all that inventive. They're very basic, most of them. Now, some of them will get a bit more fancy when they build like a dungeon and bring somebody in and keep them in the dungeon for years. That's their fantasy. They're usually very, very big into sadism in that case. This guy wasn't into sadism, but the ones who are into sadism and build a whole dungeon, they do have a big fantasy. They're online and they're building their fantasies, and then they want to enact their fantasies. Most serial killers and serial rapists are very quick. They just want the moment of violence, power, and control done. And that's why so many of them just look the same. You're like, yeah, okay. There's nothing stands out. This was an entire fantasy. The guy had a very complicated fantasy. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of stuff he did. And it wasn't because he really wanted the ransom. He didn't. He let the girl go without the ransom. He wasn't a kidnapper for ransom. He was a kidnapper for thrills and for rape. And that's why everything he did was so outrageous, so over the top, so bizarre that the police are like, come on now, this couldn't have happened this way. It couldn't have happened this way. It just happened to have happened that way. So weird. Psychopath and delusional white knight. No, that would be Nicholas Godejohn. That's what he was. But I don't think he was any delusional white knight either. Nicholas Godejohn, who I think is a psychopath, and murdered Gypsy Rose Blanchard's mother. He played the white knight, but his real interest, I believe, was getting a sex slave in Gypsy. So, but he had fantasy. Nick Godejohn also did that. He did a lot of fantasy stuff. So he was involved in this fantasy world of the evil and good and all this stuff, playing parts. He loved role playing. Well, apparently, Muller liked role playing too. In his own mind, he was role playing these army things, military stuff, and that's what he was role playing. Because his equipment sucked. I don't know why he didn't use better equipment. I think that's kind of funny. He kind of used really garbagey stuff. He should have been able to get better stuff, but he made up toy equipment to fake things, and didn't use particularly anything that was worth anything. Painting like basically a water gun and sticking a laser on it is not exactly high tech. So he did a lot of things. Little earphones with a little message playing on it is not high tech. He did these weird things, this whole little fantasy. It's like a child developing this, even though he was probably got a very high IQ. He had a fantasy and he wanted to have it enacted out. And if he hadn't blown it the second time, I don't know how many times he would have enacted it out, but he did leave, in reality, once the police did figure out his MO and it was a real guy and not somebody doing a hoax, once they figured it out, he would be so easy to identify because he left so much stuff at scenes and I think he wouldn't have been that hard to catch in the future, had he not been, had these people not fought back and he left his phone. So I don't know why, for a guy who was that smart, he wasn't that smart. Really interesting fellow. Just really bizarre. Should have done a spoiler alert. Yeah. On the show, I should have. Okay. Lisa S says, I'm always comparing cases. For example, why was Russell Williams so nice as well? I'm going to have to do a whole thing on Russell Williams because Russell Williams, in case you don't know, is a serial killer, Canadian serial killer. I think was it the Air Force? He was real high up, and absolutely not the level of person that would be a serial killer under any other circumstances. I mean, most serial killers do not do well in life. They do not rise up very high in the work world, and he did. So I can't remember him being particularly nice. I mean, he did kill the women, so that's not too nice. but he was an anomaly in that you would never think this guy did it. I mean, when the cops actually, he left a tire print at a scene screwed up, and it was an unusual tire print. So the cops did a great job. They blocked everything going into the base. And as people were coming into the base, they were just checking tire after tire after tire. And they came to this tire, and it was the tire. And they looked up and they went, Colonel Russell? They were so shocked. I mean, yeah, it's like Russell Williams. He's like, Russell Williams. They're looking up and going, I am talking about the right guy, right? And they're like, Colonel? They just couldn't believe it was him because he was so high up. He once stood next to Queen Elizabeth, for God's sakes. That wasn't the handyman, wasn't the janitor, it wasn't the mail clerk. It's just a freaking colonel. They were blown away. And that's still one of the weirdest cases. And I'll have to do that someday because that was so strange. Yes, he was alone during the crimes. Yes, Benny, you're quite correct. No one be able to make a sensible crime plan with this guy. Absolutely. The thing was so all over the place in a weird way that he was definitely alone. They've never come up with anybody with him. Now, they still think, Aaron and Denise do believe that it was somebody else because they thought they heard voices or heard him talking to people. He was setting up a scenario that they couldn't see, but they could hear things. And he used the term "we" a lot. So, that's not uncommon when you're trying to say that, you're trying to control a scene. That, if it's just one person, people think I might be able to fight back against one person. But if there's a bunch of them, we're not going to be able to escape because even if we hit this guy, the second guy will get us. It's a good method of control. But yeah, nobody else, not with this whack job, nobody else is going to hang out with him. Let's see. That's true. Uniforms make men look handsome. Yes, it's very true, Clarissa. I mean, there's something about a uniform. And somehow we trust people that are, a lot of times in the uniform. Although these days people don't want to trust police in uniforms. So, but it generally speaking, especially the military uniform, it just looks so nice. It really does. Let me just check on at the bottom here. Any more comments? The Detective Mustard, Colonel Mustard, was able to recover his reputation since this Netflix documentary. Supposedly, he's gone on and in his regular work. And a lot of times what we see is that within the department, they know the guy. And unless he does something that's really questionable, where they're like, we don't want anything to do with this dude anymore. This guy's a scumbag. This guy's been doing some really shady stuff. Then they'll turn on him. But if they think that they working with him and they're thinking the same thing as him, they don't think anything was wrong with what he did. And it's the same situation with the other case where the detective's in there, yes, the guy's got a bullet in his head, but he doesn't know that. And so everybody wants that detective to be put in prison for 20 years. But his the other police, it's not just that they're all, we're all police are all sticking together. It's just that they're like, dang, I would have done the same thing. I mean, if I were in that room, I would have conducted that same interview and I would have thought the same things. And I will tell you, as a profiler, in both of those cases, I probably would have done the same thing and thought the same way. Because I'm just saying, not looking at it with hindsight, not looking at it after I know all the details. If I were there at that moment in time with only the information I had and what I know from experience, what I know statistically, what I know for behavioral stuff, I can't blame either one of those detectives for their interrogation techniques. I don't see anything problematic with them at all. And that they thought in the beginning that the guy is, well, in one case, the guy was not telling the truth because he killed his girlfriend. And then there was something wrong with this dude. When he figured that out 20 minutes in, he's like, okay, let's get the guy some help. And then they found out he had a bullet in his head. Then they changed their what's going on. And they had information as to the story was given. And they're like, okay, now we can change what we're thinking. We have different evidence now. And in this particular case, they didn't really have the kind of evidence that would lead them to suspect that somebody actually committed the crime outside of these two. Now, mind you, I'm not part of the police department. I don't know every shred I don't know what they looked at. They may have looked at way more things than you think they looked at from outside. When you're doing a documentary, and of course, they're going to say the police didn't do the job. They're suing them. They got a lawyer involved. So they're going to say what they're going to say. But I don't know whether they couldn't prove that the stuff came from somebody else and not like, for example, Aaron, and he says, okay, well, there's tape on the floor I'm not supposed to step over. Is the tape proven not to be something he couldn't have bought and then thrown away? Remember, his car left the property. Okay, so he says he was attacked at a certain time. His girlfriend was taken. Okay, so let's look back at this for a second. The claim he made is that somebody broke in, which there's no evidence of, and they were all tied up and all that crap, and his girlfriend's taken in his car. Now, the minute his car left the property, and they apparently do not have CCTV, which really sucks. His car was in his garage, and I don't know whether they had CCTV of it leaving at some point where they could see a car but couldn't see who was in it. I don't have that info. But let's say he used some tape, a particular kind of tape, and a few other things. He had time to take those things with him and throw them away because his car left the property. And if they don't have video of when his car arrived in the parking lot, then and they don't have pictures in certain areas he could have been in where he could have dumped things that there weren't cameras. They could have thought that at some point in time, he or she, whatever, had certain items in the house, some tape, some NyQuil, whatever. And they could have had that. I have NyQuil in my house, and I might not use NyQuil for 3 years. There may be not one shred of evidence I ever bought that NyQuil, right? So it's sitting in my cabinet. So one day I decide I'm going to pretend that somebody NyQuil'd me, and that's why I'm so sleepy and I didn't know what happened. So I take that NyQuil, and now you got two choices. You can wipe the NyQuil off so there's no fingerprints on it and just leave it sitting there to prove there was NyQuil. Or you could pour some NyQuil on the sink so you can have some evidence of NyQuil, or on the bed. And then you take the NyQuil bottle with you and you throw it away. So the NyQuil bottle isn't even in the house. So the killer took it. See, since his car left, he could have removed things that would have matched items in his house and proven that he was involved. See, it gets very complicated. So if you're actually analyzing a crime scene, the problem is, well, like the emails. He got emails to go get money, but the emails were from his own email account. So now, mind you, obviously, Muller did that. But how can you prove that Muller did that and he didn't do that? So this is what the police are looking at. They're looking at it going, we don't have enough evidence here that anybody else broke into your house and did these things to you. And so there you go. There's the problem. And then when she reappears very calmly, 600, all this ways away. And what the heck? So now I don't know if they thought somebody else gave her a ride. True for Sherri Papini. How did she get where she was going? Well, at the point they thought maybe it was she stole, I don't know. See, the thing is, I don't know what they looked at. I don't know what they went through to determine that they couldn't prove that there was any outside person. So I stand like this. Unless I have proof that they botched the entire investigation from top to bottom, I can't say that we're a horrible police department. They were wrong in the long run. And I'm sure it's embarrassing as all get out. Nothing like finding out you're completely wrong. I mean, that can happen to me too, maybe it has happened to me. And I had a lot of reasons to believe something, but it turns out to be something else because nobody's 100% right. No detective, no profiler, no media person. And it would be nice if everything was quieter, if the media would just shut the hell up a lot more and not do these 24-hour-a-day things where everybody's talking about everything. Maybe that would help. But all I can say is I don't know that this guy was a horrible detective. I think that he just may have been doing his job, and after the fact, he's like, what the heck? Who would ever know? Well, now we do, but now we do. Weren't they in it together? No, they were not. No, the wife left him trying to make it look like he killed her. Her original, see, this is interesting because her thinking changed along the way. Could be the same thing with Muller. Her original idea was that she was going to make it look like she got him out of the house. When he came back, she wasn't there and there was a smashed up table and whatever. He called the police. They wiped up blood and all this stuff. So they said, this guy's killed his wife. She wanted the police to nail him. She wanted him to go to prison for life. And she was planning to kill herself. That was going to be, she was pissed at him. So her idea was she was going to drive away with this car that nobody knew she had. And then she was going to drown herself somehow. This is where it gets a little suspicious, in some lake somewhere. And when they found her body, maybe after been in the lake a long time, they would then say, see, he did that to her. And that would be the second proof that he killed her. And then somewhere along the way, she changed her mind. I guess she didn't feel like dying. And so then she thought she would return. I think she was also trying to get him back at that point. See, the whole thing is psychologically, it doesn't really work for me. But so then she comes back and then she's like, you can't rat me out. Because he's like, I know you set the whole kidnapping thing up. I know you didn't get kidnapped. And she's like, well, too bad. Nobody's going to believe you now. And so she forces him to stay with her, which makes no sense whatsoever. So stupid. A lot of stupid stuff. But in the movie, her mind changes from time to time. Now, it's true with psychopaths. What happens sometimes is the fantasy doesn't quite work the way they want the fantasy to work. So then they change their tune and rewrite a story, go to another version, go to chapter 2, whatever. What if they don't find your body in the lake? You have to start over, but you're dead. That's a problem. So I guess she had to figure out where they were going to find her body at. Yeah, I say it's not my favorite movie. Not my favorite movie. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. A person needs more than NyQuil to be that out of it. There was a diazepam also. He did mix two things in there. Was it diazepam? I can't remember. Yes, I forgot. That just wasn't in the reading thing here. But yes, supposedly it was a double mix. Now, I don't know where they should have tested his blood. I would assume they would have tested his blood, but I didn't remember seeing that in the documentary and I can't find it anyplace. I would think that. because if he's going to claim that, I would want to have a blood test done to see what drugs are in his system. But yeah, he was theoretically pretty knocked out, so that he was so groggy that he wasn't functionable for all those hours. But again, see, it's so strange that it just makes you sit there going, yeah, yeah, sure, buddy. Sure, buddy. That's guy makes you drink NyQuil and whatever else is in it. You know, it's a bizarre. I'd say it's beyond bizarre. I've never heard of a case like this ever. And so that's why I say I really don't blame this guy for not believing Aaron or Denise for that matter. Was it in there? They did do a mouth swab and test his blood. Okay. All right. Sometimes, by the way, doing these shows, I've had people, thankfully, some people come in like you and bring in information that I don't have. Sometimes you just, it's only so much you can look at in a short period of time. And as I always point out, I'm not writing a book. If I were writing a book, I'd be working on this for an entire year. I'd be checking. There wouldn't be one interview or site or anything that I hadn't seen and read, because I'd be looking for every detail. When I did the book on Cleopatra, believe you me, I don't think there was anything left on the market that I hadn't looked at, because I couldn't afford to leave something out. But, when you're doing, I think I decided on this show, what was it? Friday? I think I decided on a show on Friday. So, I only got so many hours, and I watched a documentary, which took me 3 hours. I watched the movie, which is 2.5 hours. So that's 5.5 hours. And then I went through the internet trying to find more information. So now you're up to 8-10 hours to do a YouTube show that sometimes makes you $5. Yeah, because I'm not Dr. Grande and I don't make massive money per show, or what is his name? Mr. Ballin. So you got a limited amount of time you can put into trying to get all the details. So when you all come in with details, I'm perfectly happy with that. Because I can't get them all. I just can't get them all. But I'm glad you brought that up. I would think they would have. I mean, I couldn't believe they didn't. But if they did, and they found NyQuil and diazepam, if that's what was in his system, what does that prove? Did he just drink that so he could look like he was out? The problem is, if he were setting this up after he killed his girlfriend. So let's say he killed his girlfriend earlier in the evening. And now he's got, what am I going to do with her? And so he looks around his house and he thinks, what can I come up with to make it look like somebody kidnapped her? And he says, okay, well, let's see. I'll pretend this. I got some of these ties around. I got some duct tape. Maybe I'll make it really, clever, so they'll really be looking for some kidnapper. And he says, I'm going to put this red tape on the floor and say that I was supposed to stay here because I want to make sure they don't find her for a long time. So I want to take her body and put it someplace, and I don't want anybody checking. I want to make sure I can clean up the apartment and all this stuff. So right before I call them, I'm going to chug. I'm going to chug some NyQuil and whatever else to make it look like I was really sleeping. And that's what they have to try to figure out. And again, some people say, well, they should have worked harder trying to figure out whether he was lying or not. But especially when, I don't know, they only had 2 days before they thought he was lying. I don't know what they did in the next 2 days to determine. They were looking for her body. Clearly, they were looking for her body. They weren't looking for a kidnapper too much. They were looking for a body, probably looking for his laptop, probably trying to check out to find proof that he killed her. And in doing that, if they're checking out to find proof that he killed her, they could have also run into proof that he didn't kill her. So I can't say that some of those things weren't done. And then when she reappeared, now they're just blown away and they're like, what in the heck? So she reappears and comes up with another crazy story. So now are they in it together? It's a very tricky case. And should they have gone public? And they did go public in the media and say, we were really pissed off that they wasted our money. And in the Sherri Papini case, they were much more cautious. And I think maybe because this case, they said it was a hoax, and then they got really embarrassed and then got sued. So with the Sherri Papini case a year later, they're like, we're not going to say too much. They took a really long time to come up and say it was a hoax, a really long time. They were very quiet. Now, maybe they were more correct in keeping their mouth shut, but I don't know if they were more correct because this was such a disaster as far as publicly that they went ahead and said it was a hoax. And they were probably truly pissed. They let their emotions probably get the better of them, because you put a heck of a lot of work into something and people come in and try to play you. It doesn't make you happy. And police resources are so tight that they were clearly looking for the body of the wife, or, they had probably had a big thing out doing that. And when she showed up, now they're double pissed, So I'm not in their shoes. That's all I'm saying. I'm not in their shoes. So I feel tremendously sorry for the couple. I mean, they went through some. I mean, they got nailed with the most bizarre case ever. But if I'm going to put the blame somewhere, I'll put it on Muller. Muller is the one that did all this reconnaissance work to set this whole thing up to make it look as bizarre as it did. Now, whether he's doing it on purpose to make it look bizarre, or he just loved bizarreness, I can't say. Whether Gone Girl influenced him, I cannot say. But they were victims of Matthew Muller. No, I wouldn't say they were victims they became, well, they also became victims of what people thought. That people thought they were hoaxers, that the police thought they were hoaxers, that the public thought they were hoaxers, that the media thought they were hoaxers. They became victims of all of that. But the person totally responsible for why they looked that way is Matthew Muller. So let's have all the anger go toward Matthew Muller. And the rest of it, yes, could people have handled things maybe a slightly better way? Sure. But again, we're saying that because we know because of the mother load of evidence and that was left by Matthew Muller, by the fact Matthew Muller was found due to a couple that fought back and his own stupidity. That's how it got solved. So, and now we can look back and say, well, why didn't they know? Why didn't they figure that out? I would have figured that out. I would have known that he wasn't lying. Why did they treat him like he was a liar? Why did they treat her like she was a liar? Because it appeared that way. Because everything pointed that way. Because it was an anomaly. So, this is correct. More often than not, the police theory of him being guilty would be correct. That is true. And you do have to be careful of anomalies. There's no question about that, because if you got that 1 out of 1,000, it's not a good thing. I mean, it isn't. But most of the time, it will be that guy, especially with that story. Okay? Sometimes there's a jump to conclusions when the evidence is just very weak and there's just nothing really to go on, but you just assume the husband did it. That mistake has been made before. But in this case, the evidence, that the story that he told was so freaky that it was hard to believe him. It simply was. It just was. He was a careless criminal. Amazing he got away with it. Well, he did wear gloves and he did wear a mask and he did cover their eyes. So nobody identified him. So except for when he was lurking in that one neighborhood and somebody saw him lurking around. And also the fact that he lived nearby where the Mare Island little peeper guy was. Some people thought it was him. So he did do some things that linked back to him, but unfortunately not in a total evidence way that the police could go and arrest him. And the home invasions he committed, they didn't get him on those. He did not leave DNA. He did not leave fingerprints. He did not leave enough. And in this case, he didn't leave anything either. So he wasn't that careless until the couple fought back. And I guess he got so shocked by that, he just lost control. But yes, he shouldn't have been a pack rat. Being a pack rat is stupid. You should definitely eliminate everything you use in a crime. If you're a criminal listening now, take my advice and send me $1,000 check in the mail when you're successful. No, if you commit a crime, you get rid of every shred of evidence ever connected you to the crime. I mean, that's just, you can make sure it's gone. I mean, because anything you leave around can eventually come back and bite you in the butt. And for him, he like had 20 pieces of things that came back and bit him in his butt. That was crazy. Uh, the thought that if he didn't get caught when he did gives me the shivers. Yeah, well, I don't know how many crimes he committed prior to the 2 home invasions, and whether he could have committed some in between this crime and the one 3 months later. Depends whether he committed smaller crimes and bigger crimes. And if he hadn't been caught, would he have gone on to be a serial killer, or would he continue being a serial rapist? Would he have figured that maybe he shouldn't do the same pattern every time? Dude, you got a Harvard law. He's a Harvard lawyer. Do you understand modus operandi? Do you understand method of operation, MO? Do you understand you shouldn't use the same MO every time? It's like, how would you not know that, Mr. Lawyer? It's very bizarre. Kelly says, I'm going to start throwing out all my stuff. $1,000. Oh, my goodness. Oh, is that one of the things that happened? Thank you, maybe. Kids followed him to his house after he was peeping. Well, that'll get you. What? Now, kids, I think they were talking about, they were older kids, so not little kiddies. I think they were they like teens or college students or something? I thought somebody followed him somewhere. But, peeping Thomas should be taken very seriously. And that his name should have been right away put into a predator list of some sort, possible predator list. But, when you're talking about, I can't even find, when I'm doing these shows, I lose information. I confuse pictures. And I can't find, I miss information. I think, oh man, I should have found that. And of course I'm under time pressure. But so are the police under time pressure. And the more information you have, and that's one of the problems too. If I had to talk about this case and there was one website, well, I wouldn't miss anything. But when you got 200 websites, and some of the every information is not on every website, and some of it's even misinformation, and you have a time frame, and you got all this technology and all this information, you get overwhelmed. It's called information overload. And so the police get that too. They're working too many cases. They got all this information in this case. They try to go online. They look for things. They can't find it, and I don't know. And the jurisdictional issues, do they have contact with the other police departments? Can they even get a hold of anybody because they're busy too? And hey, I got this case down here. Can you go check something out? Well, sometimes the problem is nobody's got time to check that crap out. Then they got to go through all their damn records to see if they can. And if they don't have a program that they could say, so let's say Vallejo calls them up, Detective Mustard calls him up and he says, hey, do you know a guy who, let's see, wore a black, like a suit thing, or used a laser, or had eye things? Where are they going to look that up? Do they have a program where they can put that in and it's going to pop up and say it's case number 222? Or do they have to look through every frickin' home invasion case they ever had and try to see if that matches and go through? And the home invasion case is papers long. You know what I mean? Papers long. So they got to pull the file down and they got to start reading through the whole thing. Who has time for all that crap? You wish you did, but you don't necessarily. So this is where information overload, technology, lack of time, lack of resources, all of this stuff plays into all of this. And people who are outside of police departments and working on cases, and some people who are obsessed with certain cases, like I get people who will say, I just had a guy write me about Zodiac. And he's like, you don't seem to know these things. And I'm like, yeah, I don't. And he's like, well, I've been studying the Zodiac case for the last decade. I'm like, well, that's your thing. You probably don't have another thing you do in life. This is your thing. You've read every Zodiac book. You studied every single piece of material. You're just a Zodiac freak, man. I respect that. I'm just not, I don't have time to be a Zodiac freak. So yeah, I don't know that crap, So people who can get into one thing can find out more information because they're doing real research on that. So people doing specific research projects and books, hopefully, will then access more information and be able to determine what's true and what's not true and all that kind of stuff. But like myself, the police department is under pressure, and it's a very short period of time. And it isn't as easy as people think it is. So I just like people to be a little fair to those involved in this kind of situation where you got the craziest thing ever. And they did make the documentary by basically shredded mustard and praised Misty because, but Misty, I think they're both good cops. I just think they're in very different situations. He had a mess to work with, and she got an entire boatload of evidence and a suspect. It's much easier from that end, believe you me. So, at any rate, that's it. Oh, can you absolutely, Loretta? Did you want to know that before you throw out any of your evidence? Yes. Peeping Tomism does not get much play because of the guys like, well, I wasn't looking in the window. I was walking by the window. And now here's what happens. The police have to write up a report. Do you know how long a report takes to write up? It takes a long time. And then you got to bring the guy in, and you got to try to arrest him for that, perhaps. And then the judge, nobody's going to take that to court. Nobody's going to waste their time with it. So then it just gets thrown out. So what happens is the police have learned there's a lot of things they don't waste their time dealing with because it takes hours to do something on something that's not going to go anywhere. So they say, well, the guy didn't hurt anybody. So he looked in a window. Now it's become in recent years, peeping Tomism has become more understood to be a pre-sex assault behavior. It has gone up. It used to be just a kind of a joke. Oh, he's a peeping Tom, and no, it was like that's all he's ever going to do. Now there is more understanding that it's the beginning of something worse. So I think it's taken more seriously now. But what you going to do about it? What you going to do? I mean, that's the problem. It's indecent exposure is difficult sometimes to do something with. It depends how indecent you're exposing yourself. They say, well, I was going to pee. Just taking a leak, These things are very hard to fight in courts of law, especially courts of law that are overloaded anyway. And so that's why, when you get something stolen out of your car, the police just are like, well, just report to the insurance company. It's like, we're not going to do anything with it. It's not, if you were in Andy of Mayberry and some guy came and stole your radio out of your car, Sheriff Andy would have gone there and done something about it. But not in an area where you're dealing with carjackings. Hey, were you in the car and got carjacked? No. Well, call your insurance company. We're done. You just only have so much time, so much money, so much manpower. It's the way it is. CJ says, my mom had a peeping Tom incident and the cops arrested him, but he was jiggling the doorknob and he'd been arrested before. Well, if they do, that's great. And if they could at least get his name into this is my big thing. I just want their names in a possible sex predator list. I would like everybody who, when there's a serial homicide, rape and murder, anybody who is interviewed, I would like that to be in a database because a lot of times people are interviewed because they were let's say they were the security guard that worked at the place the girl worked at, or they were a bouncer at a bar, or different positions these people might have had around the dead victim. I would want they're interviewed and they're not suspects, but I would like their names to be in there because they may indeed be the one who did it. They just weren't thought of as being a suspect at that point. But if that guy turns up, that his name pops up at 3 other homicides, and he's still not a suspect at any homicide, but isn't it odd that he was the security guard at the mall when the girl disappeared, and then 4 years later, oddly enough, this girl disappeared after she left a club, and the bouncer was the same guy that's the security guard at the mall. I would just like these names to be there. I don't know if that's legal to then put them in a database when they're not suspects. You say this is Then you have a database, and you have to have people put the names in the database. And now you're coming down to time again. Do you put you got all these people you're interviewing, 200 people you've interviewed. Do all those names go into a specific database that flags? I mean, some of this is being done, but I don't know how much of it's being done and how well it's being done. So that's probably true. Probably every woman has been flashed at some point in her life. Doesn't mean it's inconsequential or not traumatizing. Absolutely. I mean, if a guy does that, it is a sexual assault, even if it's just with the eyes. That is a sexual crime, and anybody who do that is a sex predator, straight up, hands down. I think if you are caught doing that, and as proof that you did do real peeping Tom stuff, real exposure stuff, I think you should get a fairly good sentence on that. But rarely will you get much of a sentence for doing these things. And I don't know that you're in any sex, you didn't commit an actual sexual assault, so you're not necessarily a sex predator, even if that's exactly what you are. So yes, they escalate. Yeah, they do escalate. That's true. But, again, when you're, looking at all the other crimes in the area, those tend to get less attention, way less attention, sadly. Oh my goodness. Clarissa almost finished watching Dahad. Is there something on the real crime? Yes. Dahad is, in case you don't know, it's a fabulous new, it's on Prime Video. Dahad is of a serial killer in India. And it's fascinating. It's a fascinating serial killer who's based on, his name is Cyanide Mohan, Mohan. So it's based on a real story. And so it's pretty close to the real story. A little bit, of course, fictionalized and so on and so forth, especially the police investigation part. But yes, you can look up Cyanide Mohan. I don't know if I'm sure there are videos on Cyanide Mohan as well. So I would look that up. Just put in Cyanide Mohan videos, documentaries, and you'll come up with Cyanide Mohan. Yeah, very fascinating. And I should just do a whole show on Cyanide Mohan sometimes, because he had a most unique methodology, which I haven't seen in serial homicides, which was using cyanide to kill women. And he would charm women into thinking that he was in love with them and offer them marriage when they were having trouble getting married. And then they would run away with him, and he would take them to a hotel, and he would have sex with them and take pictures, which they didn't like. And then the next day saying he was going to marry them, and they would get their prettiest dress on. And then he would, as they were driving toward wherever they're getting married, he would say, oh, we had unprotected sex. Something went wrong with a condom or whatever. I'm going to get you a morning after pill. And so he'd run into a store, come back out with a morning after pill, and then hand it to her and tell her to go into a public bathroom and take it. And he said, just stay there for a second because you might be a little nauseous. And so she would run in and never come. And as soon as she went in, he would just drive away, because the pill was actually, didn't really get a morning after pill. He had a cyanide pill, gave it to her, and she would just drop dead in the bathroom. And he would run away with her jewelry, everything she brought with her. Sometimes some of the girls stole stuff from their houses, like, gold jewelry and stuff. And then he would just start over. He'd find another girl and he'd do the same thing. So it was really a bizarre case, but I've never seen one like that. And they had all these girls who were dead in bathrooms, and they couldn't figure out, they knew there were cyanide deaths, but they couldn't figure out why the girls took cyanide. They thought they were suicides in the beginning. Like, all these girls look like they're in bridal clothes, are all committing suicide in the bathroom. It's like, that's weird. So this guy had really a heck of a brilliant scam going there. He really did. I think he killed 20 women. I mean, fascinating. So Dahad is a depiction of how the police are going after the guy, and it's just really well acted. And it's kind of fascinating to watch, because I thought the guy playing Cyanide Mohan in the movie did such a good job, and it was really creepy to watch the way he worked. I found that the most interesting, the way he seduced these women, and oftentimes what he said to them was the same exact words he said to another girl. So you could watch how he did this whole game. And a really interesting movie, really good movie. And I liked it because it's not your traditional, slash them up, serial killer, like brutal, violent murders and everything like that. You didn't see any of that kind of stuff. And so it was just really, yeah, really good movie. Cool. 10 minutes left. You're almost done. um, yeah, 20 victims. Yeah, okay, 20 victims. Yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, it's really good. So I don't know I haven't watched any of the Sinai Mohan documentary stuff, but the I'm sorry, Dahad, Dahaad. It's on Prime Video. And just, you do have to like subtitles, it's in Hindi, which I'm studying. So I'm always comfortable with the language, but it's got English subtitles, and it's just really well done. And it's just fascinating. It's this whole series. So check that out. You'll find it very enjoyable. So, and just different, say. And cyanide, I'm beginning to understand, is used a lot more outside of the Western world, more in Asia, in many cases of homicide. And they must have better ways of getting a hold of it than we do in the United States and Europe. So, because it's just something you don't hear about that much over here, but I'm finding more and more cases done by cyanide poisoning elsewhere in the world. So, yeah. Oh, it keeps you hanging. It is fascinating to watch. It's just, yeah, it's really good, really good. So anyway, that's it for today. I'm glad you think it was an interesting case. When you watch the documentary, you're going to get more into how bizarre it was. You're going to feel the whole thing. It's really interesting to watch the documentary. But I just wanted to bring up the interesting points about, how things are figured out and how they're not figured out, and what anomalies do in these cases. Again, this is an educational channel. I'm not a storytelling channel. So there's other places to go. All the famous people, Balin and all that. I think he does a whole thing on this, and he's got the creepy, talking about the creepy stuff, and he's got all the, the cool stuff behind him. And it makes for a good storytelling session. But I don't try to repeat other people's kind of work, because mine is education, understanding things, getting into how things work. I find that's what interests me. I'm always interested in the puzzle, more than interested in just the fact that it happened. I'm interested in the puzzle, how it's done, how it's figured out, and what are all the things that trip you up everywhere, because life isn't perfect, and neither are people. And people are trying to do their jobs, and sometimes it just doesn't go that well. Lisa says, thank you, Pat. Great show. I love your profiling skills and how you teach us. Thank you. Some people have said, your shows are too damn long. Yeah, and some people just want Dr. Grande for 15 minutes. But what I always point out is that my opinion really shouldn't matter. Just because I'm a, quote, professional and I have an opinion. So I tell you the story and I say, this is my opinion. This is, especially in a crime, who did it type of thing. Or was the person a psychopath or not? I can give an opinion. But a lot of times, if it's a short video, no one explains anything. They'll just say, this is my opinion. That's why I explain so long, is because I want people to get into all the nuances and to see where my thinking is coming from. And you don't have to believe me, but I want you to understand the process of my thinking so that you can decide whether you do think that for example, I don't think that this guy was terribly wrong in his interview and not believing poor Aaron. I'm not just ready to jump on this guy, and not in that way, but just to say this guy's a horrible guy, because I can put myself in his position, and this is such an anomaly of a case, so bizarre, and Quinn's, his whole affect was so flat, and he just had an issue with his girlfriend, and everything just fit together as a hoax. Or that in the beginning that he was lying, made up this stuff because he killed his girlfriend. And when the girlfriend shows up, it's weird as well. So I want people to understand why he thought the way he did, not just said, oh, he was wrong. Why didn't he give the guy a break? Why did he immediately decide that he was lying? No, because there was reasons. And that's what the channel's all about. It's understanding things. And so, yes, it's a long educational show usually. And I can make a crap load more money if I made this into 15 to 30 minutes and didn't give much detail and just did a story. I could make 10 times the amount of money. But I'm an idiot and I like teaching. And teachers never make as much money as entertainers. There we go. Anyway, you have to go back to the beginning. Yeah, sometimes we do, even if I'm sure you missed a good portion of the show. CJ says, I wouldn't believe the guy either. Yeah, I mean, it's if you watch the documentary, you'll see some of the actual interview part, and you'll hear the 911 call, which I would have reproduced, except I could only find it with straight from the show with the music. And I know I'm going to get nailed with copyright stuff. I just couldn't find it anyplace else. You listen to the way he does a 911 call, and you think, that right there, the information was okay. I didn't have a problem as a profiler. I thought the information was correctly done for a person who wasn't guilty, because he immediately focused on the things he should tell them. He didn't start with something like, I didn't do it, and then go on, to try to make up excuses. I didn't hear any of that. So what he said was fine. It was weird, but fine. But his tone, his affect was so flat. That was the red flaggy thing that made you wonder. And then you go through the whole interview and you'll see so much stuff that's just so weird. I thought this article had a lot more information in it. Really great articles. That I'm definitely linking and giving her credit for that. She did a lot of work to write that article, and deserves credit for real investigative journalism. That's rare to see. I didn't find anything else like her article. So that'll be in the link below, as it should be. So anyway, thank you guys for being here, and I will see you for the hangout during the week. And I'm going to do a thing on, because I've been asked to, on Scott Peterson and the new California Innocence Project, I think it is. I'm not sure which Innocence Project it is. It's one of them, because states all have their own now, and why they're going to try to get this guy off, because now they say they didn't. One thing I read, it didn't say that they said he was innocent, but they're looking into his innocence. And so, but everybody's jumping on it going, oh my God, see, they must have something that proves his innocence. So I'll talk about that in a separate video. So I will see you next time, guys. And I'm always glad to have you here. And again, if you're still here and you haven't liked and subscribed, at least do that, because it makes a difference in the good old YouTube algorithms. And I'll thank you for it. Bye-bye.